The following is rated TV MALSV. It contains strong language, violence, and nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion advised.
To work with the first unit from time to time out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great opportunity. This is the perfect time for the coaches to do it. Rotate guys in. Like I said, there's no pads on or anything yet, so they're really just doing their best to get guys looks, get a feeling for it all. So I'm going out there, every opportunity I get, trying to make the most of it. And I think, again, it's really beneficial to be able to work next to guys that have, played in this league.
All the tight ends have been super helpful, but yeah, Cole, it's a vet right there. Does everything the right way. Really good at football, really good mentally, really good physically. So it's a great guy that I can look up to. And he's been very coachable, let me know, show him I run a route or do something, he'll tell me some things, how he sees it, some coverage things or whatever that may be. So he's been super helpful and I'm very appreciative.
Did you get him a wedding gift?
I didn't, not yet, but I made sure to tell him congrats.
Training camp's going to be a lot about building trust. And I think we got a head start there. But when we come back, it'll be the fundamentals, techniques. They'll know what that's about, how we want to practice, what's allowed, what's not allowed. I think really they're going to take that and run with it. Our vets will. And then we'll really just be able to focus on getting good at football plays from there on out in situations. And so I'm pleased with the progress we've made over the last few weeks. Alluded to it last week. We got a lot of work still to come, but we're right on track.
Last year for you?
Hardest part, losing. Losing sucks, and I don't like losing, so that was hardest part.
Bro, what's it been like working with Antoine Randall?
It's been great. He brings a lot of energy. I say all the time, he reminds me of Jamarcus Shepard, and I'm not going to compare the two, but they are two great men. Very very Christian and supporting of the Bible and giving us those verses and different things that help inspire us, and that's words of wisdom as well, and that's also their on the field knowledge and the energy that they bring to every practice every day is something that I feel like I have a great response to and chemistry when it comes to that coaching style. So he's been great.
How do you take his intense coaching without entrusted as taking you where you want to go and not just this is getting on my nerves?
I don't think it get on your nerves. It's just more like, dang, you gotta look at deep down in yourself and be like, did I really mess up? Did I execute the play at the highest level that I can? Was I slacking or was it perfect? So that's what he wants, perfection. But we all can't be perfect every play. So just being as close as we can is the best thing.
That was Ozzy Trapillo talking about playing alongside the vets. That was also Colston Loveland, Ben Johnson talking about trust. Colston Loveland, by the way, did not get Cole Kmet a wedding present. What a guy. Jesus. Roma Dunze talking about he hates losing, and Antoine Landau is a very inspiring coach. And DJ Moore, kind of with his tail between his legs, because it's out there, open topic. He was not showing the best of himself last season because of his frustration, and Ben Johnson has talked to him about it, and it's been nipped in the bud. Hey, it's Bear Their Souls. My name is Aldo Gandhi. I hope you guys are all well. We bring in the real star of the show, Johnny Santucci. How are you, Tooch?
I don't know about that, but good to see you, Barkeeper. Yep, I'm ready to talk some Bears. Yeah, the best gift that Loveland can give Kmet is not taking his starting job away.
That's right. Pia Buddy. Hey, look who's in the chat. Is the very sexy and humorous and big-time Bears fan.
Tell her to stick around. She's in Bear State of Affairs.
Oh, ay Dios mío. Heidi Zimmerman. We've got two guests tonight, Tooch. One of them is Jeff Agrest from the Chicago Sun-Times. He's going to be here around 10:30, so that's about 90 minutes from now, and we'll talk a little bit of sports media with him. And then we also have this gentleman here by the name of Jeff Willis. Jeff, how are you, my friend?
What's happening, fellas? How you doing?
Doing good, man. Thanks for jumping in with us. It's become a treat looking at your T-shirts every Friday night on the Willis Twin Towers, and tonight as a guest on our show, you got a Rolling Stones T-shirt on. Pretty cool.
I figured, you know what? I was like, I can't go wrong with the Stones. Pretty much everyone likes the Stones. I'm sure Tooch would like it. I'm sure you like it too, Aldo. So I think I have 3 Stones shirts, and I think this is my favorite one. So I figured I'd wear it, and why not? I got so many band shirts, it's not even funny.
I should have worn my band shirt tonight. I forgot.
I should have too. Tooch, were you a Beatles guy growing up or a Stones fan?
I like them both. I mean, one of the first albums I had was the Beatles, so kind of grew up first with the Beatles, and kind of got to the Stones and Who and Black Sabbath and all of the Led Zeppelin and all the great bands and stuff. So, but yeah, I kind of started with the Beatles. Yeah.
What about you, Jeff?
Well, it's kind of, I didn't grow up in the era, obviously. I'm a little younger. So I got the reason that I became such a rock connoisseur, I guess is the word for it, is because I both my dad, my stepdad, my uncle, even my mom liked some of that genre to an extent, but they all liked that kind of music. Zeppelin, Pink Floyd. I remember growing up, my dad lived like 4 hours away when I was younger. And so he would drive us back and forth every other weekend. And I would have he'd be listening to Pink Floyd and stuff like that at night. And it's like the kind of thing that just you grow up listening to, you learn to love it through that essence, and just a lot of that kind of music. And my mom grew up in like the funk and disco era. So I learned how to love a lot of that kind of music too, like Kool and the Gang and shit like that, So that kind of was
don't give a fuck.
Holy shit, Heidi. Take it easy. This is our guest. Heidi, what are you doing? So you grew up on disco too, Donna Summer, and I've been listening to some Donna Summer recently. She's one of the best disco queens of all time.
Definitely, yeah. I definitely grew up on some Donna Summer too. My mom listened to all that kind of stuff. Was it? Nice. Hot Stuff is the one Donna Summer song. What's the other one? Bad Girls, I think, is the other big hit she had. I loved all that kind of stuff for sure. I
Need Love. Is that the one? Need Love. Anyway, but yeah, she. Back in the day, Jeff, there were rumors going around that Donna Summer was a man. Do you remember this?
Really? No.
Yeah, it was an urban
first
myth.
I've heard.
Yeah, that she was a transsexual or transvestite, whatever they called it back then. And it was, of course, not true, but it was just a dirty, ugly urban myth that was going around town here in Chicago for a while. And we didn't have the internet then, so we don't know if it was a nationwide rumor, but we heard it a lot in our neighborhood.
I wonder how things like that get started in the first place,
Mm-hmm. Heidi sent you an apology, by the way.
No harm, no foul, Heidi. My feelings are not hurt whatsoever.
During that time, Aldo, the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack was on the turntable quite a bit.
Yeah, I have that on vinyl.
It's a great album.
Great album. Really fantastic album. Yep.
And not a bad movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen
a great movie. Yep.
Yeah.
It was Gene Siskel's favorite movie. He talked about it all the time.
White suit. He bought John Travolta's white suit. Yeah. I used to work at Channel 2 when he was bragging about it. I'm like, why would you brag about that? Yeah. It's a good movie. I actually saw it about 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was on. I caught it midway. And from a production standpoint, it doesn't hold up really well. Right. The directing was a little spotty. But I really like the story about an inner city guy who can dance really well. That's where his life comes together. Outside of that, he's got a family where his father is hitting him in the hair. His mom is, super religious and always on his back. And he works at a paint store, but the one place he can get away and have a great time is that dance floor. It's an interesting premise.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's like a lot of people's lives. It's like they're 40 hours a week at work, they're grinding, and then they have that one little getaway they have, whether it be like the bar, the nightclub, or whatever the case may be.
And it's interesting that you say that, Jeff, because it kind of segues to the question I wanted to ask before we get to Tooch's Bear State of Affairs. Is I wanted to ask each of you is why? Why are we still Bears fans? I mean, Jeff, you're the youngest, so in terms of, in that compressed time that you've been a Bears fan, you've gone through a lot of fucking suffering. I mean, Tooch and I have gone through a lot more, but in a compressed time, you've had an intense amount of disappointment. So why are you still a Bears fan, Jeff?
I think the easy word to go back to for me is just my personal, the way I am is loyalty, I guess. Like, I'm just loyal to my team, which is kind of funny. You guys might find this ironic because I might have discussed this with you guys in the past. When I grew up, I liked the Chiefs a lot too. Yeah, I've always been a Bears fan because my dad, obviously my dad, both my parents, dad and stepdad, Bears fans. I grew up watching, my uncle Bears fan. I grew up watching the Bears, but at the same time, when I was like really young, like in my elementary school years, they weren't very good at the time. And the Chiefs were like a high powered offense, really good. They had I remember they had Trent Green was their quarterback. Priest Holmes was their running back. They had Eddie Innocent and, they were a pretty good team. Tony Gonzalez was the tight end. They were good. And they had a good offensive line.
Priest Holmes was a fantasy football god, right?
Monster. I loved Priest Holmes. I had his cards. I had all kinds of shit Priest Holmes related. Yeah. Huge fan. Jerseys. I was a big fan, but I always loved the Bears too. And just, I think as you see them like playing badly and you see the bad football over there and just the things that don't go their way, like the shit, like with the Hail Mary last year and the play before it that led up to it, things like that. You just it's almost like you can't wrap your head around. Mm-hmm. The thing I come back to is it has to be loyalty. I can't see what else it could be other than insanity. Maybe it's just insanity. Right. I don't know. Seeing these kinds of things, it's just like, I just have a lot of hope, I think.
Munchausen syndrome or whatever it's called when you're held hostage. Tooch, what are you making some money there? I see you intently looking at your gambling screens. And, you're on the calculator. How much did you win or lose?
Trying to get stuff together for when you ask me if why I'm still a Bears fan.
Oh, okay. Let me read what Sam says. He says, I was born into it, and my loyalty to this team has a hold on me. LBS is, I love. What does LBS stand for? Help me out there, guys.
Laughing but serious.
Okay.
Shaking my head.
I love it. Heidi 100%. Says 100% loyalty. Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I've been more loyal to the Bears than I have my first two wives. Sad but true. Tooch, why are you still a Bears fan?
Gotta use a movie meme.
I have not watched that movie because I'm afraid to.
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal looks really good.
It's not good.
I will never watch that movie.
Yeah, you know, it's like addiction. You know, you can't give up your favorite team.
Yeah,
you know, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, you know, it's the history too, and you know, for me, I was 69, so I was learning about the team and learning that they had a great history. They won a championship 5-6 years earlier in 63. That George Halas was the fucking godfather of the NFL. I was reading all this stuff and thinking, man, this is a great team and so forth. And at the time they had Butkus and Sayers, but they were 1-13. And then the next year they were almost as bad, and on and on and on until Ditka got there 15 years later as coach. It was unbelievable.
Did Butkus like never play on a good team with the Bears ever?
Ever. I think the best record was like a 500 season, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, 70s were rough for the Bears.
Man, yeah, so sad, so sad. All right, Tooch, what do you got for us for Bears State of Affairs?
I've got a lot of OTAs. Could talk a little bit about marriages. Speaking of, so got some interesting thoughts and questions and observations as we head, you know, the Bears break before training camp. The off-season programs are pretty much over.
Mm-hmm.
They're on break until training camp. So some of the stories and things that are hanging around.
All right. Well, let's get right on it. This is the award-winning Johnny Santucci's Bears State of Affairs.
It's time for John's Bears State of Affairs. He got nothing but true bombs about the Bears. He tells it like it is and always has. And he brings it with a little put sass. No shit talking here, grab yourself a beer. If you have to disagree, he's got a decree. Go fuck your fist, cause you're on his blacklist. You're gonna hear the bare truth right now.
All right, Bears State of Affairs. Yeah, Bears 2025 off-season. Week 23, what's happened to Barflies? Yeah, well, the Bears off-season programs are all wrapped up, and now the focus shifts to late July and training camp. The Bears completed rookie mini camps, OTAs, mandatory mini camps. They'll go on a summer break and then get down to brass tacks in the summer heat of training camp. This is the first offseason for Ben Johnson, the new head coach. And it was our first chance to see how Johnson runs things in practice, what he expects of his team. There was a serious emphasis on details, a focus on discipline, and a well-publicized focus on negative body language, Aldo.
I love it.
Yeah. There were some ups and downs, of course, some winners, some losers from OTAs. And new defensive end, Deo Odeigbo, was reportedly less than impressive, and at times was behind Dominique Robinson in the pecking order. Robinson was noticeably bulked up from last season, but Bears fans remember that he flashed last preseason too and then barely saw the field, finishing with 4 tackles and 0 sacks on the season. We can't be too worried, though. The pads haven't even come on yet. Most Bears fans like me are probably saying, I didn't know Dominique Robinson was still on the team.
Yeah!
Yeah. Rookie Ozzie Trapillo looked impressive. He sounded impressive too, Aldo.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, the 6'8" rookie tackle spoke at the podium after practice yesterday. And damn, if he didn't sound like a coach. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kid. He's cerebral. He's definitely an impressive young man. OTA's Trapillo lined up exclusively at left tackle ahead of second-year lineman Karan Amagaji. Yeah, winning that starting left tackle job, that could really help solidify this rebuilt Bears offensive line. And Trapillo, he's making the most of his opportunity while incumbent left tackle Braxton Jones recovers from injury. Yeah, and among this week's offseason winners, Bears tight end Cole Kmet tied the knot recently.
Ay, Dios mío.
Not yet, Heidi. Yeah, marrying his longtime girlfriend, Emily Jarosh. Multiple Bears players were in attendance, including Caleb Williams. Yeah, it's bad news for Heidi Zimmerman and Nosley Briones, though. Kmet is now off the market, Aldo.
That's right.
There you go. It's,
What the hell? Oh my God! No way!
Yeah, and like we're going to talk about marriages, both literal and figurative, and like Cole Kmet's marriage. Yeah, there's another marriage that has to work out, Aldo.
That's indeedy. Yes, indeedy.
Yeah, the marriage between head coach Ben Johnson and quarterback Caleb Williams, that's got to work out. And part of the reason Ben Johnson took the Bears head coaching job this offseason was for the chance to work with Williams. The future of the Bears depends on their relationship. And there might be a real opportunity for the Bears to make some noise in the NFC North. The Packers, Lions, and Vikings, they've all undergone significant changes offseason, perhaps enough for the team to compete for a division title. At OTAs, Ben Johnson was happy to see his quarterback grinding. Said Johnson, quote, "He's committed to learning the offense. We're not where we need to be yet as a team, and he understands that, but any chance he gets to get a few more full-speed reps, it sounds like he wants them."
The beautiful thing of what we did.
Yeah, Williams, he's certainly putting in the work. He attended the last practices of OTAs, which are normally reserved for rookies and first-year players, to get in some extra work. The Bears, as well, Williams made a good impression on his new rookie teammates, especially rookie linebacker Ruben Hippolyte. Quote, "Seeing him around the building is very important," said Hippolyte, "for not only the team, but for the young guys to see, including myself, the leaders of the team are always here and always present, even when it's voluntary." Yeah, we've talked about leadership. We talked about pressure, and certainly on Caleb Williams, pressure for myriad reasons. After all, Jaden Daniels drafted one spot after Caleb Williams, and perhaps his biggest rival. He made the NFC Championship as a rookie. That's pressure. A new offense is being installed by a new head coach who, by all accounts, is a disciplinarian and a taskmaster, Aldo.
That is right.
Yeah, the team has made considerable investments in the roster. Yeah, including rebuilding the offensive line and drafting offensive playmakers with their first 2 picks of the draft. And this season, Caleb's excuses won't carry as much weight. The Bears have invested heavily in the offense, all for their franchise quarterback. Not only that, but Williams will have to Williams will have to be in form early this season with the Bears' demanding schedule. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, sir. Yeah, 10 of Chicago's games, they're against teams that made the playoffs last season. And several of those teams enter 2025 with realistic Super Bowl or bust expectations. Yep, as Jeff Willis knows, ultimately this 2025 season all comes down to Caleb Williams. Yep, is Caleb willing to make the sacrifices necessary to be great? Is Ben Johnson and the Bears, are they willing to put in the extra work, make the sacrifices to get this team to the playoffs, open up a big playoff window, and ultimately lead the team to a 40-year drought of Super Bowls? That's Bears State of Affairs.
Yeah, baby.
He told it like it is and always will. Listen next week to get an earful of whatever's happening with the Chicago Bears. It always happens here with John's State of Affairs. If you have to disagree, he's got a decree. Go fuck your fist cause you're on his blacklist. You just heard the bare truth right here and now. John gave it to you straight cause he's got no sacred cows. If you have to disagree, he's got a decree. Go fuck your fist cause you're on his blacklist. This was John's Bear State of Affairs.
Jeff, would you wear a "fuck your fist" T-shirt if I sent you one? You're muted.
Sorry about that. It's the second time I've done it in like a week now. I had to go out to my car for something, but I probably would. It would depend on the situation, though. It really would.
Should we spell it F-U-C-K or F-U-K or some other way to lessen the shock of walking around with a "fuck your fist" T-shirt?
I think it's less of like that for me because I got no shame in my game. I think it's more or less like where I'm at, the scenario, I guess. That's it.
My wife and my niece were talking about it. They were laughing, having a good laugh about "fuck your fist," and they came up with the idea of T-shirts. You should have T-shirts, and they're all laughing. And then my wife says, "I don't even know what "fuck your fist" means," and I'm like, "Really? That's what I do every night when you go to bed." But "fuck your fist" T-shirts. It could be a winner. We'll check the pulse of the nation. All right.
Marriages, Aldo. Marriages.
I'm sorry. What was that?
Marriages, Aldo.
Yeah, marriages.
Cole Kmet got married, but it sparked me thinking about, Caleb and Ben Johnson. That marriage has to work out, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does.
I think it's huge, and one of the things that Jeff and his twin brother Tim talked about on Friday's Willis Twin Towers was the comment that Ben Johnson made about whether Caleb can throw on time. And he says, yeah, if the receivers are there in time. And so that brought to mind, Jeff and Tim went through it thoroughly, but I'd like to revisit it. That just brings to mind that, a lot of times we blame stuff on the quarterback, but it's the receivers many times too. It's the offensive line, obviously, but on those quick timing passes, if the quarterback doesn't hit his receiver right away, don't blame it immediately on the quarterback. It could be because that receiver allowed himself to get caught at the scrimmage line, was slow off the line, whatever the reason. It's a big part. And it seems to me, what's his name? JP Acosta for SB Nation wrote a really good article on it. He talked about, how putrid this Bears offense was, and that Caleb has to play more on time, but it's not just him. It's the offensive line and the receivers as well. What do you guys think?
Well, a couple of things, just they're related to two different things. You said the first thing is I saw a tweet today. I think it was Warren Sharp. He's like an analytics guy on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And he posted that the Bears were dead last in the league on average yards in their first drive of the game. They averaged 10 yards a drive in their first drive. That is just absolutely the second worst team, 31st, was the Patriots. They had almost twice as many yards on their first drive. They had 19 per drive on average, which is like the fact that you're almost half that, the second worst team in the league, that should tell you something. That's not just putrid. That's abysmal. We're talking about that's something that absolutely not only has to improve, it's like there's no way it can't improve. There's nowhere to go but up from there. So, right. Like you said earlier, Tooch, it's that marriage has to work. But going back to kind of what you were saying, Aldo, as far as the timing and stuff, I thought it was really telling that Ben Johnson said that in the press conference, like, hey, he didn't just say, like, Caleb's got to work on getting there faster like he did before in that other presser. Yeah, he's got to get there faster on that one play. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. But
Yeah, sure.
But it's the same thing, and this time he was like, yeah, the receivers, I think he'll be more on time when the receivers allow him to be there on time. So you guys hear this term all the time. We all hear this term all the time, landmark. There's a landmark they got to hit. Well, that's not just the quarterback has to hit that landmark. The receiver has to hit that landmark on time too. Mm-hmm. So again, it's not just them developing the rapport together. It's also like part of the offense. You got to be where you're supposed to be kind of thing. That's why we hear him saying that. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on it. But I think that's basically at the end of the day, that's really what it boils down to.
And Tooch, DJ Moore, that press conference he had, it wasn't the last one, it was the one before. I actually saw it for the first time today, and I thought it was really eye-opening how he basically allowed himself to be taken out into the barn and slapped in the ass because of the questions that were being asked, about his discussion with Ben Johnson on whether, his body language and on certain other things. And it was like an admission that DJ Moore himself was saying, yeah, I can't do that anymore. I got to be better, and I think this is a huge year for DJ. He has got to get his shit together, man, because I'm just concerned now that he signed this contract. We have seen this before. Sports fans from every city, a player in one of your sports teams that you love signs a big contract, and all of a sudden, that's not the same guy.
Yeah.
What happened? And
so I was thinking.
Is DJ Moore going to be that guy? I hope not.
Yep, there's a lot to unpack there,
Yeah.
He's got 80 million reasons to not be poor with his body language,
Yes, indeed.
But he's also has Rome Madunze, who has looked a lot. He's put in the work this offseason. He's looked much improved, ready to take a step, whatever you want to say. And Adunze might have the ability to become a number one receiver on this team. I know DJ Moore's used to be in the alpha, and then they went and drafted Luther Burden, who's arguably almost the same player as DJ Moore. Good run after the catch, roughly the same size. Maybe not as good a route runner as DJ, but
too.
Yeah, I mean, they're and Luther. This might be even more magnified. Burden's out with a soft tissue injury, and you heard Ben Johnson talk about him. He's got both him and Loveland missing key times while they're installing the new offense.
Yeah,
and then as far as like Johnson and Caleb, I mean, both Johnson and Caleb talked about the red zone passing game this week, about how it's a different kind of animal. There's landmarks, like Jeff said, back, shoulder, pylon, front pylon, back pylon, all that in the red zone passing game, and Caleb wanted to stay and get more work in on that stuff afterwards. These are all good signs heading into the offseason. Like we said, this schedule is tough, Aldo. It's tough. Man, we have, I think, the top 3 or top 5 toughest schedules on paper in the NFL this season. Right. So, I mean, even when the Bears finish 4th, they still end up with a tough schedule, you normally. But like I said, in Bears Day Affairs, the other 3 teams have taken significant losses. The Lions to their coaching staff and their all-pro center. Jerry Alexander was let go by the Packers. And the Vikings, lost Sam Darnold in the offseason. They're starting a rookie. So there's opportunity. Really opportunity for the Bears.
Yep. Jeff, what do you think about what Samuel wrote there? That he wrote, "I'm not worried about DJ. He had a lot to be frustrated about last year, and that doesn't mean he should have acted out. But I get it, and we know that he can play."
I love Samo.
Yeah,
he's right. He's 100% right.
Yeah. There's a lot of truth to that. Absolutely. Yep. I mean, I think that DJ a lot of times can be a product of his environment, and when things are not going well around him, we've seen it firsthand with the Bears here. He walking off the field and stuff like that. There were questions about him, with things after, last year with the way he was acting. So, if things aren't going well around him, there's that question mark. But I feel like, with the environment that's there right now, and the fact that they're pushing so much accountability and I just don't think the staff's going to put up with that. So I don't see that as a concern. He's going to get the football. He's going to make plays. They're going to scheme the ball to him. They're playing him in the slot, as we've heard. And Ben Johnson mentioned months ago, for whatever reason in my offense, the slot receiver has a tendency to get the football. So there's a reason they're putting DJ there. They want to get him the ball, So, and they're trying to get the ball to their other playmakers too. That he even said to Cole Kmet after that big mistake when he yelled at him, like, "Hey, I was trying to get you the football. That's why I'm yelling at you for not being in the right spot," kind of thing. So I like that about him, and I like the fact that they're trying to do this scheming and whatnot. But again, it's like, I think that I agree with whoever said Rome has that higher upside. I think he's the guy who could be your number one receiver in time. But DJ right now, he's your guy, and he's going to get the football, and he's a playmaker with the ball in hand. So I'm not too worried about him either, especially with this new staff.
But let me say this, you guys are all making good points, and I know that Ben Johnson's going to do a good job, and Antoine Randall, and all the coaches are going to do a good job of helping these guys stay focused even during frustrating times. But I am still of the opinion that when players allow the frustration that's going on around the team, when they allow that to get to them and they demonstrate body language, when they quit in the middle of a play like
DJ I'm glad you said this.
And I know that people were saying he hurt his ankle. Yeah, he did hurt his ankle, but he still walked off the field, and he was off that fucking field for over 5 seconds while that play. If it would have happened to me, if I thought the play was set and I started to walk off the field and then I realized the play's still going, I would have turned around and gotten down on the field and figure out what to do. It's just during the toughest circumstances, I've coached in flag football, I've coached in baseball, and I always told my players, when the times are tough, that's when you got to be more focused. You got to find something extra. Show me that you deserve to be great. Show me that you can be great. Show me greatness, and go out there and do it. You know.
So glad you're saying that.
So I get a little frustrated that sometimes us fans make excuses for the guys that we love. Let's stop doing that. Let's hold them accountable. That's where I am at, because my fucking blind loyalty to the players of the Chicago Bears and to the organization, those days are over. Those days are over. I'm going to question everything.
Can I ask you guys? I want to ask you guys a question about that DJ Moore play. And I'm glad you brought this up, Aldo, because this has kind of been, said. I know good times are ahead, Samo.
Yes.
And Aldo. I want to know how you guys felt watching that play live in the game, because I was like, what the fuck is he doing?
Yeah.
And I was like, Aldo, I was angry. I'm like, well, he signed a huge contract. And look, I get it that the coaching staff sucked.
Right.
The offensive coordination was bad last season. JT O'Sullivan picked it apart, where receivers were definitely, from what he could tell, were not in the right place. And that also hurt Caleb's development, where they're talking about him throwing on time, and brought up, well, if the receiver's not there where he's supposed to be, how can you expect him to throw on time? Not only that, but he was sacked 68 times running for his life behind patchwork offensive line. But how did you guys feel watching the play live?
I'll tell you quickly how I felt. I was hoping that there was a good excuse for it. I didn't want to pass judgment right away, and so I saw that he was limping off and he sat on the bench. I'm still, following him as Caleb is coming from the other side of the field for another 6 seconds. He's running towards the sideline closest to the camera, and I can still see DJ Moore sitting down, and then the camera takes him out of place. And so I'm hoping that, he's not seriously injured. That's what I was thinking about. I hope he's not seriously injured. And then on the next play, he's out there. Now, there was a stoppage in play. They had to review something. Something happened. There was a stoppage. So he had a little time to get back out there. But he went back out there, and I always, after a player gets hurt, I always have a habit of taking, kind of isolating on that player. And I did on DJ, and he was running a go route. And I'm like, fuck, for a guy that just walked off about 2 minutes ago with an ankle injury, they're sending him out on a go route. Is that smart? So that's how I felt. What about you, Jeff?
It was kind of the same thing as both of you guys said. Like my instant reaction was the same as Tooch. It's like, what the fuck is he doing? And as a Bears fan, look, this is maybe just me, but you guys are probably much the same way too. But like when I watch Bears games, there's a lot of that comes out of my mouth. Like, what are we doing here? What is this? It happens a lot watching the Bears play, but it's not just players, it's coaches too. Like, what is this decision we're making here kind of thing? But that was one of those things like, what are we doing? And, I think, like you said, he sat down on the bench. It's like, even if you're hurt, like, bud, you went and sat right down on the bench. You see your quarterback scrambling to the other side of the field. It's like, you're not there in the play. So it's like, if you're hurt, fine. But it's like, that's not the way you would react in a situation where you're hurt either. So my personal opinion. So I wasn't real happy with that play. And like you said, right after that, he went right into the play and again was, the go route, whatever. He was just fine. But I just think that, like I said before, I think that when his environment around him, a lot of times will dictate his attitude. And I just feel like that kind of thing is not going to fly this year. I just don't see that being the case. And the body language thing, I think it really is more pertinent than maybe some people are giving it credit to. Tim and I talked about this before. I just think it's like, you nip this thing in the bud now. Like I said, it's not going to become a problem in the future. And it's like, Ben even said it about, I think he was talking about Caleb's body language in an interview with, I think it was Albert Breer wrote an article about it, if I'm not mistaken, but he was talking about how he was kind of like, as a leader, it's important for you to be able to get back up from those things and not show, both, not just your teammates, but the other team too, that like, this isn't bothering you. This is something that you're going to get back up, and it's not going to make or break you. You just, you're on to the next play kind of thing. Because as soon as a team sees anything outside of that from you, any kind of whininess or something similar to that, they're going to pounce all over that, and they're going to know right then and there they've defeated you. Right now,
Right.
It's done. They've got you, and it's the same thing, in the same scenario here. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. I feel like that in that situation, DJ probably should have been better, but I don't think it's going to be a problem anymore. I don't.
One more quick point here to your question is, and J2K kind of inspired me to say this. He says, I kind of let last season go in the wash. But here's the problem with that, J2K, is that everybody this offseason, all the coaches from all 31 other teams that have looked at Bears tape, they're looking at DJ Moore and they're saying, we can get in his head. He'll quit on his team. If I'm a defensive back coach and I'm sitting down with my players and say, look how he quit on his quarterback. Look at that motherfucker. He quit on his quarterback. Get in his head. You can outplay him. You can make him quit. That's how I would play it. And so that's why it's important to not only remember, it's important to review. And like Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. I'm going to trust you, DJ, that you're going to do more, but verify it with your fucking play every fucking day at practice, in the classroom, and on the field. It was reprehensible, as Samuel said. It was not a fucking good time in my career of watching Bears football throughout the Dave Wannstedt years. All those fucked up coaches. The teams never did that. I never saw a player quit on that I can remember anyway, that quit on the Bears. What about you, Tooch?
Yeah, I know it's disappointing, and we can, attribute some of this, to the last season's coaching staff. The team quit on the coaches. They mutinied. They overthrew the coach. It's understandable, but like Ben Johnson told them, you can't put it on TV. Don't put the behavior out there. And the most important thing I think we take away is that Ben Johnson's doing the most he can to set the tone, to set some ground rules for these players, that this is not going to be tolerated. I think part of the disappointment was that, during Hard Knocks, we saw, he just signed them one of the biggest, if not the biggest contract in Bears team history. Had a new house and lovely family and stuff, and
beautiful family.
Yeah, and to see it was disappointing. The Cardinals game for DJ Moore, and number one, Bears fans expect more from a number one receiver on their team, one of the stars, everything like that. We shouldn't see that from our number one guy.
Mm-hmm. This is Ben Johnson talking about the upcoming training camp and what they have done over the last few weeks to prepare for that.
Training camp's going to be a lot about building trust. And I think we got a head start there. But when we come back, it'll be the fundamentals, techniques. They'll know what that's about, how we want to practice, what's allowed, what's not allowed. I think really they're going to take that and run with it. Our vets will. And then we'll really just be able to focus on getting good at football plays from there on out in situations. And so I'm pleased with the progress we've made over the last few weeks. Alluded to it last week. We got a lot of work still to come, but we're right on track.
Everything that he said there could have been applied to DJ Moore. You and I are building trust. You and I know what our expectations are. I've told you what you can expect from me. Now I've told you what I'm expecting from you, and on. Everything that he said there, which is why I love this coach and why everyone in the chat room and you guys are saying we got a lot of trust in Ben Johnson, that this DJ Moore thing is in the past. I do too. But now, to me, it is up to DJ Moore. Because I think the coach is there. He's explained it to him and the media and everybody else. Expectations. Now, DJ, you gotta come out with a little extra, make up for some of that shit you did last year.
Yep.
That's a fair point. I mean, they've been very clear with their expectations, and all the players have said that they've made it. Whatever they're expected to do, it's been made very clear to everyone. So, I mean, At this point, it is kind of on the players to execute that plan.
So let me ask you guys about Cole Kmet. Would you put him in that same kind of category of players last year who fucked up one way or another off the field or with their body language or anything like that, that you want a lot more from this season? What do you think, Tooch?
Yep, I would. A couple things. I know some of it could have been, of course, coaching and whatnot, but there were a couple times where he had, goose eggs for stat line, and we can attribute that to the past coaches. But there was also a time when he called out his teammates for not working hard enough, and maybe that shouldn't have been done publicly.
Yeah. I agree totally.
Yeah,
Jeff?
And not even just that. I mean, he I feel like he made a lot of media appearances last year. He had that show on CHGO he did with them. I think it was called the 85 that I think he did like once a week with them. And he was, you could just kind of tell that his like demeanor had shifted throughout the season when he was doing that show even. And I agree. You don't throw you don't throw your teammates under the bus. You do that kind of thing in the locker room. Like if you have something to say about a guy's work ethic, you say it to him in the locker room. You don't say it in front of the media. So then the guy has to come to you in the locker room like, what the fuck, bro? What are you doing? What are you coming behind my back for like that? And Cole Kmet's a leader, so I don't know if that was necessarily the case. I don't know if he's like calling guys out and not saying it to him in the locker room, but I just don't think you handle it that way in general. You just don't go to the media with it. But
well, Jeff, when he was pressed on the situation, he said, well, it's nothing that happens, like in the practice field. It's guys, who when they're in the weight room, they're supposed to do 5 reps, but they do 3 or 4. He said some shit like that. And so here's where I come from. If I notice a teammate, doing that or it doesn't appear to be giving 110%, then I'm not, because I don't have real hard evidence, I'm not going to say, hey, you got to give more. I will just go over and be a good teammate and say, come on, baby, come on, give me another one, come on. Or bust his balls. Hey, man, I think I did double the amount you did or whatever to help the situation as opposed to just talking about it to the media. So I don't know. I just expect leadership. When I was in corporate America, there was a book that my boss gave to me, and he said, talk to your people on your staff and your department about everybody being a leader. Everybody has a leadership role. And I think that's the same thing that should happen on football teams, especially from how many captains did we have last year? Like 42 of them. 8, right. Especially from those 8. And they seem to be the biggest aggressors to the rules.
DJ.
Yep, DJ, Jalen Johnson flipping off Packers. Those are all players who were supposed to be leaders, captains, whatever you want to say. And again, we've got to go back to the Eberflus regime and Waldron.
Absolutely.
And we can't discount that. We're not discounting it. But we do want to see, and I think we'll get it from the new coaching staff, we do want to see a bit more leadership qualities and leadership examples from our captains this season.
Exactly. This is what Cole Kmet should have said in the locker room.
Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rules?
Leadership, the same one Mitch Trubisky read when he got here.
Yeah. That's right. You guys ever hear this story about the Seattle, back then they were the Seattle Supersonics, that Xavier McKinney got into a fight with Jeff Ellis. Xavier McKinney was, Jeff, I don't know if you followed basketball back at this point. You probably weren't even born. But Xavier McKinney was a bad boy, power forward, in your face, throwing elbows, pushing people around. He was a bad motherfucker. Ellis was a sharpshooting three-pointer, averaged 20-plus points a game and so forth. So they're playing poker. They would, just like every NBA team, probably still now, but back then they would play poker on the plane, and the stakes would get very high. And the rule was that if you were on the plane and if you lost money, you would pay when you got home. Like if you're traveling to a different city, and so you always pay when you got home. So Ellis lost $5,000 to Xavier McKinney. And so when they got home, X-Man went over Ellis and said, hey, so where's my money? He goes, get the fuck out of here with your money. He goes, you're saying you're not going to pay me? Get the fuck out of here. Bam! They start fucking fighting. they start having an all-out brawl.
Wow.
That's what I want my team to be like. Be so competitive. You're gonna fight for $5,000 in poker money.
What's the old saying? Don't write checks your body can't cash.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you're dealing with a guy like Xavier McKinney.
Xavier McDaniel.
Yeah, don't let your mouth write checks your body can't cash. That's what it is.
That's right. That's right. These staring chicken lick in my brain.
It's Xavier McDaniel, but we knew what Aldo was talking about.
Okay. So what did I say?
I was going to say as a safety, I think in the NFL.
We know what you were talking about, though.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, that's why you guys are here. Correct me, put me back on path.
That is personal.
Hey. Okay. So we talked about that. I wanted to talk about one other topic that I had in the open, and I'm forgetting what it was. So we talked about. It appears like Ben Johnson really kind of let the wide receivers know you got to build Pele on time and so forth, and that perhaps too much blame was put on Caleb Williams. There's no doubt about that. The offensive line, I think we're all fucking in agreement that the improvements in the interior of the offensive line. So I now remember what I wanted to ask you guys. So I was going to post some clips, but I ran out of time. A lot of the national media is saying Caleb has no more excuses. He's got to get it done. How do you guys feel about that? Jeff Willis, what do you think? Is this like if Caleb doesn't have a season like a number one overall pick should have, then you're going to start blaming him or getting worried at least?
I see where everybody is coming from when they say that. I mean, because that's the easy line, the easy narrative to run with is, well, he's got no excuses now. He's got weapons. He's got protection. He's got everything he could want. He's got coaching. What else could he want? So I just think that I do expect to see improvement. I think it was Zach said something in the chat about he missed on several throws last year too. There were some inaccuracy issues, especially on the deep ball. Yep. So I mean that those kinds of things do have to be corrected. There's some footwork things. It's not just it's his issues, it's receivers' issues, it's everybody together. I mean, he's got improvements to make as well himself, but I do think we got to show him a little bit of leeway. He's not going to be perfect right off the bat. It's kind of an anomaly to see guys like Jaden Daniels have the year he had last year and CJ Stroud have the year he had as a rookie. And even he regressed a little bit in his second year. So I think we should see improvement from him. Absolutely. I think that if he has a couple, not great games early on, we don't need to be jumping all over him either. I think I've said this multiple times in the past on my show. Offenses take a little bit of time to get going. Usually defenses are normally further ahead early in the season. So I expect it to take a little bit of time for the offense to really get going, but I do expect them to get going. And when they do, I do expect to see plenty of improvement from Caleb. I think it's a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Harsh, I guess, to say he has no excuses now. I mean, because we don't know. We've never seen this coaching staff in action. As much hope as we have, they still have to go out and do it. And the same thing with the personnel. We haven't seen this offensive line together yet. So they still have to go out and do it. We hear about offensive line continuity all the time. Well, quite frankly, this offensive line hasn't played a single snap together yet. So let's get a little bit of time at least, but I do think he certainly needs to improve. Yes.
Tooch, what do you think?
Well, like I said in Bears State of Affairs, excuses won't carry as much weight. Because the Bears have made considerable investments this offseason, a new head coach, a new coaching staff, rebuilt the offensive line. The first 2 draft picks were spent on offensive playmakers. They drafted an offensive tackle. There's a few things still from this team that are lacking a little bit. The running back room may not be that great behind DeAndre Swift. And then the pass rush looks like it might not be as good as we think. Maybe there's players they could add and stuff, free agency or cut downs or whatever. But definitely Caleb Williams, the pressure's on. He can't make excuses. He's got to learn the offense. The marriage has got to work.
Yep. To answer D. Stan's question, I think the number one pick in the NFL draft should be a Hall of Fame caliber type player, or has Hall of Fame potential, plays to the level where he should be considered a potential Hall of Famer? It is a great question. It's a great question. And here's the thing that at the very least, I expect from Caleb Williams in 2025 is don't fuck up the easy shit. Those little passes that we saw an open receiver, he either didn't see him or threw it to him and it was inaccurate. Don't fuck that shit up anymore. I can appreciate a 50% or slightly less completion percentage on passes that the ball is in the air for 40 yards or more. I can accept that. Those are not easy passes to complete in the NFL. Absolutely. But those passes near the line of scrimmage or 5 yards down the line of scrimmage to receivers, those have to be 75% completion passes, 80%. And it just would frustrate me to all hell when I would see him doing that. And I understand that there were reasons for that. When you don't trust your offensive line, even the fucking great quarterbacks, the Hall of Fame quarterbacks, have had problems, because because they saw that. Right. They experienced and saw that in their dreams. Imagine being Caleb Williams and you're playing against a team with a great pass rush, and that you got 5 different starters on the offensive line than you started the season with. I mean, that's what he's going to be picturing. I'm going to get killed out there, and I will never ever pretend that that's an easy job to stand in the fucking pocket, and when a big 300-pound guy is going to fucking knock your head off of your spine, that's you're going to flinch, you're going to throw an inaccurate pass and stuff. Hopefully that shit is gone, and if it is gone, 85%, I'm going up at the completion percentage on short passes, 80, 90%, 100%. I definitely want to see that being one of the improvements I have for Caleb Williams this upcoming season.
Just a quick thought to back up a little bit, going back to, I think it was D. Staren's question about number 1 picks and the expectation for them to Hall of Fame. Let's just think about it for a second. Of all the quarterbacks that we can think of that went number 1 overall that we consider great quarterbacks, how many of them are in the Hall of Fame or will be in the Hall of Fame?
Mm-hmm.
Peyton Manning will be in the Hall of Fame. I think he already is, actually.
John Elway.
John Elway. Just think of all the ones we can think of that were great that went number 1. Most of them are already in the Hall of Fame or will be. So I just think that's something to consider too. I mean, Joe Burrow will probably be in the Hall of Fame one day. Went number 1 overall. Andrew Luck, if he hadn't called it quits early, he probably was on the way to a Hall of Fame career. It's like it's the way it is. If you get it right, that's kind of the trajectory those guys take. So that's why we say that. Yeah, that's if you take a guy number 1, that should be the expectation. I mean, if you don't want him to get it wrong, that's never the goal. So yes, I would say that. Pretty much, that's
some drafts are better than others, but every draft at the very, very top should be offering guys who maybe they're not Hall of Famer, but they're potential Pro Bowlers for a few years, top level guys at whatever position they play.
J2K, I said, to be fair to me, I said quarterbacks that went number 1 overall that we consider to have been great quarterbacks are normally Hall of Fame guys.
Yeah. I think, when Tim Couch was selected,
certainly.
Yeah. Do you remember, Tooch, when Tim Couch was selected number 1? I for one, was saying, why? Who? Yeah. Why?
I said when the Bears took Trubisky, I was like, why? What are we doing? What? Are you serious right now?
I'm glad you said that, because I can't believe how people at the time quickly jumped on the Trubisky bandwagon just because he was a Bear. It's like, hey, 30 seconds before the pick, you were saying, I hope it's not Trubisky. And now
I remember telling my brother, it's like right before they made the pick, when they moved up, I was like, they got to be taking Watson. They must think that there's no way they could get him if they stay at 3.
Yeah.
And then they took Trubisky of all people.
How about that?
It's
pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nobody was trading up to get ahead of them for Mitch Trubisky.
No.
I know hindsight's 2020, but that wasn't a tough one to figure out.
Yeah.
All right, the other topic that I remember I wanted to talk about, are you guys concerned about these second-round picks still not being signed by the Bears? I mean, yeah, you got to believe that Luther Burden, coach said he had a soft tissue issue, injury issue, but maybe doesn't want to go out there without a contract, you know? Here's somebody wrote this, and I think it was Florio over at Pro Football, whatever his website is called. Second round picks now are expecting guaranteed money because the Cleveland Browns signed one of their, or I think they've had 2 second round picks, and both of them got guaranteed dollars. And so now all the other agents who for second round players who have not already signed a contract prior to that are saying, whoa, that Jim Haslam guy, he's giving away guaranteed contracts now. My guy Luther, who was going to be a first-round draft pick, he deserves it. Ozzy deserves it. And who's the third second rounder? Yeah, he deserves it too. So that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem. I expect it all to be rectified, but it could lead to some time missing in camp. Luther Burden strikes me as the kind of guy who would be very, very quick to do a little holdout to get his guaranteed dollars because other second round picks have gotten guaranteed deals on their contracts. Jeff Willis, what do you think about that? Do you think that could happen? It could be a problem?
I think if it's mandatory, I don't think he's going to miss. But I mean, if it's like an injury thing and he could potentially let it linger over some money, I mean, maybe. I mean, I can't say whether or not because I don't know the guy well enough to say that. But at the same time, it's like, and Ben did stress like it's important to have these guys out on the field. It's part of this, part of the getting everybody acclimated together and stuff. So it's important for that, to be the case. But I'm not super concerned about it just because the fact that the Bears have shown with their draft picks in the past. I mean, they've had a few of them have had a tendency to linger on and not get signed right away. With this regime in particular is what I'm talking about. But, they end up getting them signed at the end of the day. And the new guy, it's obviously not Cliff Stein anymore. And I can't remember what the guy's name is now for the life of me. But the new guy that they got handing their salary cap has – they obviously have a lot of trust. I mean, he seems to have done a pretty damn good job with the way their cap health is in the past several years now. So I would say I'm not too concerned about getting them signed. It's just a matter of when they get signed. And I don't think they're going to hold them out of camp or anything. I think they'll be
Tooch, you're creating confusion in the chat room.
I got a Drake basketball shirt too, David. If that helps.
I'm a wrestling fan, so I don't like Iowa. I much prefer Penn State to Iowa. If you guys are wrestling fans at all, Iowa's been like the long time. They were always the best of the best, and now Penn State just kicks the living shit out of everybody year in and year out. I mean, badly. They beat everybody badly.
I didn't know that because when I was a kid, Iowa was always kicking people's ass.
Not anymore.
You guys have no idea how big the wrestling is in this state. It's still
is it big?
Huge.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh yeah, huge. Pennsylvania and Iowa are both huge wrestling states, and you got high school kids coming out of there are really, really good, very good.
My man Brandon Lawson says, per chat GPT, 14 first overall picks have made it to the Hall of Fame. That's 15.3%, and 4 of them are quarterbacks. Brandon Lawson, outstanding. Was just celebrating an important anniversary of sobriety. Thank you, Brandon, for being a follower of the Barroom Network. He's become a good buddy, and we're going to have him on the show so that we can talk football with him, but also talk about some important life stuff that'll happen hopefully sometime this offseason.
I was trying to think of which players are number 1 overall draft picks right now playing here. You've got Caleb, of course.
Joe
Burrow. Joe Burrow. Trevor Lawrence, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
He ain't going to make the Hall of Fame.
No, not on his trajectory right now.
Matt Stafford. Overall.
Borderline, probably.
He's got the numbers. I mean, he's put up some. A lot of people have said he's a stat stuffer. I know Kirk Gabriel's always called him that. Yep. But then when he finally won a Super Bowl,
he's good.
That moniker on him has gone away.
Baker Mayfield still playing, and Bryce Young is the other one. So those are the ones that are still But Josh Allen wasn't a number 1 overall pick. I don't.
Jared Goff went number 1. I forgot. Ant-Mass, good call on that. Jared Goff was the number 1 overall pick.
Was he? I thought he was 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
He went number 1.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Number 1.
All right, Tooch, let me know your opinion about these unsigned second rounders. Do you think it's going to be an issue or not?
You know, the Bears have always been pretty good with signing their players before training camp. I can't remember. The last holdout, I think, was Roquan Smith, right? Right, was the rookie deal. I think he was the last one who kind of missed time waiting on that contract, and that was a contentious negotiation. But for the most part, man, the Bears had a reputation of being the first ones to get all their players signed. You know, Cliff Stein. I know he's not the guy anymore, but I'm not too worried. I think it'll all get done, and training camp will be, I don't think there'll be any holdouts.
I got to tell you, I am a little bit worried, only because the Bears and the narrative that the Bears are cheap, I don't think is fair, because they spent a hell of a lot of money on facilities, on administrative help, and on players. They've spent a lot of money. But a lot of times when it comes to signing rookies, they do try to put language in the contract that is unlike other things. That's why Roquan held out, is they wanted language in his contract that I forgot exactly what it was, but it was unlike other first rounders. And so I for one, believe that second rounders should have guaranteed contracts, or at least 2, or if it's a 4-year deal, 2 or 3 of those 4 years should be guaranteed. I feel that those guys should be good enough to get guaranteed contracts. And so I hope that they get it, but I'm not sure that the Bears organization is going to be so quick to give that up. But I hope that those days of trying to insert language into contracts and nickel and diming people, I hope that went away when Ryan Poles went away.
Yeah, I think they already do get partial guarantees in the CBA. I could be wrong about that, but I think pretty much every draft pick has at least some kind of partial guarantee.
I know the first rounders do, but I don't know if the second rounders do. If anyone in the chat knows that, please let us know. Thank you for your help.
We do, yeah. I think that the biggest thing is that the guy in the second round, it might be 2 guys now that have gotten those fully guaranteed deals, and so everybody wants to get their deals fully guaranteed.
Right.
Right. Yeah, they had 3 second-round picks.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not all going to get fully guaranteed deals. I can promise you that. That's not going to happen.
No, well, we'll see. I mean, they're probably
maybe one of them, maybe, but even that would kind of surprise me if any of them even got it. Really, fully guaranteed. I mean, maybe Burton, just because he was picked at the early part of the round, and like you said, he was a first round talent by a lot of prognostication. So I could see him getting it, but I don't know about the other 2.
Interesting. Well, I should have pulled up that article, because it probably had that in there. But nonetheless, we'll move on to other topics. I just hope it gets done. I don't want anything to hamper this training camp. I want the team to be healthy. That's the other thing that bothers me. We talked about in Bear States of Affairs, is that these guys who were high draft picks, they were drafted while they were injured. It's like, we did this before. And it never really seems to work out, but maybe it will. Maybe Amagaje comes in and plays fantastic, and maybe these guys who are injured and not playing in the 2025 OTAs and mandatory minicamp, maybe they'll get healthy and everything will be hunky-dory. But the scars of shit that's happened in the past makes me wonder, man.
We've come a long way since drafting a guy who could jump out of a pool.
I've never challenged Greg Grable or brought that topic up with Greg Grable. No. He'll kick my ass. He'll get into his car, drive from Libertyville to Arlington Heights, and just break down the door and say, "Where are you?"
What did you say? What did you say?
I heard. Okay, so there you have it with the Bears and the offense. I did want to get some points across, or just talk a little bit about the defense, because we always tend to dialogue what's going on with the defense.
Yeah.
The first player I wanted to focus on was Tremaine Edmonds. Do you think that how convinced are you that Tremaine Edmonds is not the type of linebacker we hoped that he would be? Or do you think that he's going to start showing, that incredible length, that sideline to sideline speed, that coverage ability, and with Dennis Allen calling for more blitz, that he's could get those Urlacher type numbers, 50 plus sacks, 5 plus sacks, 50 plus tackles, and 5 interceptions. I see Tooch. I see you nodding your head. You think something good coming for Edmonds?
I don't know. I mean, it could have been coaching again. Certainly the promise was there. We promised, and physically he's so gifted.
Mm-hmm.
And the comparison to Urlacher, like physically with the attributes, the size, speed, all that stuff. But he's been outplayed by his linebacker mate, TJ Edwards, who arguably was signed for, half of the cost.
Right.
And now he's got Ruben Hippolyte, breathing down his shoulder. So I don't know. I mean, let's see what Dennis Allen can do with him, and let's see if he can put it all together. I mean, he's still relatively young. He's been in the league for quite a long time. I think he's, 24, 25?
Yeah, I think he's 26 now.
26 now?
Yeah, he came into the league when he was 19 or 20.
Yeah, he was 20.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do you think about Edmonds, Jeff?
I feel like he kind of gets a bad rap because of the fact that he makes so much money, and the Bears let Roquan go, because they didn't want to pay him so much money. So I can understand why there's some disdain there, because there's a lot of fans that loved Roquan, and he's obviously been a great player for Baltimore. He didn't fit the scheme the way they wanted him to when they traded him, so that was a part of it. Right. I think that's kind of part of why TJ Edwards has had more success and been outplayed, as you said. Tooch has outplayed Edmonds is because of the fact the scheme was part of that too. The Will just has a tendency to make more plays in that defense. I think personally, Edmonds is still a good player. He had some. I do think that he should play better football than he has over the past couple of years, especially considering the fact of how much money he does make. And he did play better in Buffalo than he has played in the first couple of years they did here in Chicago. J2K says he looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. There's a little bit of that to an extent. I think he plays pretty well in space as far as in coverage in the middle of the field. A lot of coaches have talked about that in the past, about his ability to take away the receiver in the middle of the field, to take away the pass game in the middle of the field. So that's part of it. But I do think this scheme will fit him better. I think this coaching staff will utilize him better. I think it is important to know, again, the pads are not on. We always talk about this. We can't stress that enough. But he has looked better so far from what we've seen in camp and whatnot. He's been making plays on the football and whatnot. So I do think he's going to play better. I think he needs to be better in run support, in my personal opinion. That's why I said there's a little bit of truth to what you said, J2K, about looking like Tarzan, playing like Jane. I'd like to see a little more physicality out of him, but I do think he's good in the pass game. He's a good player, and I do want to see a little more out of him, though. Yes.
Just as you said that, I put up Samuel's comment saying that Edmonds plays like a safety, and we need to see him play more like a Bears linebacker. Couldn't agree more. The other thing with Edmonds that I think could help him immensely this year is better defensive tackle line play. Keeping those offensive linemen away from Edmonds as much more than we've seen will help him with the run defense, which is the biggest problem that I have with him. Is I see him getting blocked downfield so easily, and he unable to disengage from blockers. It was during the Lovie Smith years that he loved those big. It was actually Dick Duran who loved those big defensive tackles that kept offensive linemen off of linebackers. And so if we could get to that, help Edmonds a little bit more, it could be really, really big for him, because the guy is immensely talented from a physical standpoint. And you could just see that presence when he's lined up in the middle. And he's got that wide stance, and he's got those long ass, horror movie long arms. Man, the guy looks the part, looks like Tarzan, right? But it's time that he starts to play like Tarzan. Allen asking Edmonds to attack versus Flus, asking him to play lateral could wake him up, but I need to see it. That's J2K.
Yep, we all need to see it.
We want to see more, yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely. All right, the defensive backfield is another topic I wanted to address with you guys because the question is simple. Is Jalen Johnson a tier 1 cornerback, or is he just paid like one? Jeff, you got a quick response to that.
Another great. I love these questions.
In my opinion, he absolutely is. I mean, the thing is people will look at it like, this is just, I don't know if this is like a stereotype about corner play, but a lot of guys they gravitate towards the people who make the most plays on a football. They have the most interceptions, most pass breakups, that kind of thing. But to me, if you're a true lockdown corner and you're not throwing the ball your way, what more can you ask for? You're completely keeping the ball away from the guy and that's another thing too, is in this particular defense, they've talked about how I think they're going to have Jalen Johnson shadowing the number 1 receiver more often than not now. And that's about as good a praise as you can get, And we've seen him in the past when he goes up against the better receivers in the league, he does a damn good job against them. I think I can't remember the exact game it was, but there was a statistic about a game at Minnesota where when Jalen Johnson was covering Justin Jefferson, he held him to basically nothing. I think he had 1 catch for 5 yards or something against Jalen Johnson in coverage. And the rest of the team, he had 6 catches for 150 yards or something like that. So it's I do think that that's a part of this. This guy is so good that they don't want to throw his way. But, again, part of it is who's he going to be on? If he's not defending their best receiver all the time, what good is it? So I do want to see him shadowing that guy more often. I think he's going to. As J2K says, Stevenson playing against lesser comp this season, he could flourish. I think so, too. I think he was exposed a little bit against better receivers last year a few times. So, yeah, I think that's an important thing to consider. And it was a great question. Honestly, in my personal opinion, I don't want to say he's underpaid because he makes damn good money, but you see some of the other corners that make more money than him. I think he's better than a few of those guys are. I really do.
Tooch?
Well, of all the position groups, stories this offseason, the defensive backfield might be the most intriguing, if not one of the more intriguing stories or groups. We've got Jaquan Brisker, who's had the concussion issues and is playing for a contract. Ryan Pohl's first ever draft pick, Kyler Gordon, also out of contract. All the safeties are out of contract.
Kyler Gordon just signed the deal.
Did he? Okay, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I was going to say Kyler Gordon got an extension.
Okay, Kyler Gordon was extended. I missed that.
Highest paid slot corner in the NFL right now.
Damn, when was that recently? How did I miss that?
This was about 3 weeks ago.
Okay, I was at my mom's funeral.
Maybe a month at most. Yeah.
All right. So
you've had a few things going on, Tooch.
Had some stuff going on, but try to hit it all the new. And then you have Jalen Johnson, who I'm trying to figure out whether he's overpaid or underrated. And then Tyreek Stevenson, who J2K said was the 4th highest targeted cornerback. He's got the Fail Mary hanging over his head. That game will never. Well, it's like the double doink. The Fail Mary, the double doink.
Bears infamy. Yes.
Yeah, living in Bears infamy. So I mean, and then they drafted a 6'3" cornerback with 4.3 speed. So that guy is going to be he's making the team.
Who was, by the way, handpicked by your DB coach, Al Harris. Hey, I saw this guy who I think we can develop into a press corner in the 4th or 5th round. That's exactly what they did. That was Al Harris saying that to Ryan Poles.
That's right.
So Kyler Gordon's got the contract. Jaquan Brisker does not. That's sort of an odd symmetry. They decided to let Jaquan Brisker test. This season, his health. They're testing his health. They're testing his ability to play without a contract. How badly does he want to be here and play for next season? So there's lots of questions and stuff. But as far as Jalen Johnson being a number 1 cornerback, he's definitely in the top 10 in this league, I think.
Yeah, what's weird, guys, is the best cornerback that I've ever seen on the Bears is Peanut Tillman.
Yeah, me too.
He was special because of the peanut punch, the turnovers that he created. That was special. But Peanut was not a 100% lockdown cornerback.
No. Right.
And part of it is that he played probably the best group of wide receivers in a season, every season, because of Megatron and Randy Moss. Those battles that he had with those guys was fucking like legendary boxing shit, It really fantastic. But I think that just speaking about me personally and what I've consumed in terms of cornerback play in Chicago, I've never seen a lockdown cornerback in Chicago, and I don't think Jalen Johnson is that. I think he continues that trend of being a good corner who can make big plays, but he can get burned from time to time in certain games. We saw last season he had a couple of games where he was burned. So I guess he
was kind of checked out though from he was pretty much the ringleader of the mutiny.
It doesn't happen very much. Really though, and he was his little guys in the media all the time, and he could not get out of the media. I tend to agree a little bit with what both of you guys are saying. I do think.
Sorry, Aldo.
I can see where you're coming from. I think he's a little bit. He's a little closer to lockdown than not.
I'm sorry, Jeff. Say that again.
I was just going to say, I see where you're both coming from, but I do think he's a little closer to lockdown than not.
Okay.
He's I mean, I don't want to say he's as good as Tillman yet, because Tillman they're totally different players though, mind you. They're totally different styles of play, but I mean, he is the best we've seen since, for sure. I mean, and he's damn near locked down. He really is. He's very close, very close.
And who was it that put the stat up there about how many times he's targeted? Johnson has been lucky in that he hasn't been targeted as much because opposing teams looked at Tyreek Stevenson and whoever was there before him as guys that were the better of the two cornerbacks to exploit, and those were unproven guys. So to me, Jalen has been helped a lot by the fact that he hasn't been challenged as much as other cornerbacks, but maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe this guy is a super cover guy, and with Dennis Allen playing this press style this year, I'll be able to see him locked down from week to week to week. I'd love to have a guy like that. Wait a minute, Samuel says I agree with Aldo. That caught my eye right away. Jalen Johnson can be exposed to see so many traps with the best wide receivers week after week.
Well, I mean, if every week, if he's going against the top guys every week, and he's seeing Justin Jefferson twice a year, he's seeing I already lost his name now. Amon-Ra twice a year.
Jameson Williams.
We got a lot of other good teams with good receivers we're going up against this year too. So I mean, it's a possibility. But I mean, if he has like the year that he could have too, and I think somebody else mentioned this in the chat. I can't remember who it was now. The pass rush is a big part of this too now. If the pass rush is getting there, and with this defense, they're going to be pretty exotic about the way they use it too. So we might see them making more plays on the ball earlier, and we might see Jalen Johnson either having more plays on the ball himself, or, like I said, just locking guys down. So we'll see.
We're expecting Jeff Agrest in about 10 minutes or so. I want to share with you a quick story about Donnell Wolford, former cornerback of the Chicago Bears. When I worked at Channel 2 here in Chicago, WBBM TV, every year for about 5 or 6 years, we did an event down in Disney World called the Goofy Games, where Disney World would invite 30 different TV stations, and they would bring a reporter, a couple of players or former players, and a TV contestant to compete in stupid wild games. And one year, we brought Donnell Wolford of the Chicago Bears, and Donnell showed up with the most gorgeous woman I have ever seen in my life. She was gorgeous, and every morning when I would get up, the first thing I would think about is, I wonder if I'll get to see her in a bikini today. So she was fantastic, and this is a week-long event. And so, like about the third or fourth day, I was talking to her and so forth. I go, so what are you guys doing tomorrow? And she says, oh, I'm going back tomorrow. I go, well, we still have 2 or 3 days left. Yeah, I have to go back. So I found out that was Donnell's girlfriend. His wife, his pregnant wife, was showing up the next day. So the next day, we are out to dinner with Donnell Wolford, his pregnant wife, and I said nothing. What am I going to say? It's like, this is awkward, man. So anyway, that's my story.
Side piece.
Yeah, Samuel. Dang.
Man.
I hope Donnell Wolford is not watching this right now. Anyway, for my money, says D. Starren, Wolford was one of the best Bears. Yeah, he was. There's no doubt about it.
Yep. Leslie Frazier too. I put him up there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, look who just joined us.
Yeah.
Look who we'll give him a second here to get situated, and then we'll bring him in. I'm really looking forward to this interview with Jeff Agrest of the Chicago Sun-Times. He is the media reporter there. He writes a column. He covers all sports media. And if you're not following him on X, you really should be, because he puts out, for those of us who love sports and love to talk about, learn about what's going on with sports media, Jeff is one of the best. He shares a lot of stuff and always has a good take. Let me see if he's ready to go here. I'll put him up on the screen. Jeff Agrest, how are you, brother? I can't hear you. You're muted. Let me see if I can unmute you. No, I think it's it's on your end. He's going to check out and then come back. Jeff Agrest, again, with the Chicago Sun-Times. We should hopefully have him back here momentarily. What is it that you want to talk about with the Jeff? John, do you have any questions?
Oh, yeah. I've got some stuff. Of course, the WSCR shakeup post Dan Bernstein incident, which Jeff wrote about. Yeah, it's on your list, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And the NBA returning to NBC, I think, which Jeff also wrote about recently.
I think I'm squared away.
I think you are. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing well, gentlemen. How are you guys?
Really, really well. This is the second time you've joined us on Bare Their Souls, and we're really happy to have you back. You're one of my favorite interviews because I love sports media so much. And then you talk about it so eloquently and write about it, report about it for the Chicago Sun-Times. You're one of the best in the business. I truly mean that. And so we're really fortunate to have you here. With me here, Jeff, is Johnny Santucci. He's the handsome guy there with the Iowa State shirt. And then wearing the Rolling Stones shirt is Jeff Willis.
Jeff, pleasure. Gentlemen. Really happy to be here. I really appreciate the kind words. It means a lot. Thank you so much.
You got it. I'm going to start the questioning off, Jeff. If I were to ask you, let's say I'm your editor and I say, hey, I want you to write a story about what's the biggest sports media story in Chicago sports media for the first 6 months of 2025. I'd love to see your first draft. So what would I read if I'm looking at your first draft? What's your lead on this story?
Well, I'd have to think about it. I would have to say CHSN, but Dan Bernstein being forced out of the Score. Flip a coin. Yeah. Those are your top two. That was just we all saw it coming, I think.
Yeah.
But for it to actually happen, for that next Monday to go on the air and not hear him, it was so disappointing for me personally, just because I was such a fan of his. And I've written that so many times. He knows how I feel about his work, about what he puts into his work. He let an unfortunate incident get the best of him, and that was so sad, because he was somebody I would turn on the radio at 10 a.m. to hear what he has to say. And right now at the Score, there's people I like there, certainly, but he was the one guy I would go to because I needed to know what he thought about something.
Yeah.
And now, I've always respected Lawrence and Matt Spiegel and Lawrence Holmes there. They've been there forever. But Dan had been there not only longer, I thought he was the most well-rounded, insightful, informed, host. And even back to when he was covering the Bears in the mid to late 90s when he started there. He had reports that were that taught you something, that they were interesting, and that continued into him hosting. So that was a real blow, and I'm interested to see how the ratings continue for the score. I think in the end they'll be fine, but without Dan, that's might be the best you get, unless you had they brought back Jason Goff, like he's somebody else who I want to know what he thinks about things. I listened to his podcast with The Ringer, and he could just talk for a half hour and I'd listen to every word.
He's great.
He's in that ballpark. And I don't know if the Score has that person on their staff right now. And that's a blow to Scoreheads.
I've always, looked at Bernstein as Howard Cosell, Chicago's Howard Cosell. I grew up with Cosell. Remember reading his book when I was like 10 years old, Cosell on Cosell. He was the Monday Night Football phenom. Fans loved to hate him, but they also loved to hear what he had to say and how he said it. And they wanted, here in Chicago, when we were not a part of the Monday Night Football highlights, that he would ad-lib through the highlight segment. Everybody wanted him to talk about Chicago Bears, and he was just such a fascinating figure. And when I first heard Dan Bernstein, I said, this guy kind of reminds me of Howard Cosell, and he sort of kind of lived up to that reputation. A lot of people hated Bernstein, but tuned into him. He was the ratings winner all the time because he wanted to hear what he had to say, just like you said, Jeff.
I think a lot of that dislike was from when he and Terry Boers were together, because they would hammer callers.
I was one of them.
Were you really?
Yeah.
I didn't always like it. Some callers deserved it.
Yes.
Some didn't, and it became their shtick. So it did make for some uncomfortable listening.
Yes.
But there were times where, when the whole Penn State Jerry Sandusky thing happened, you could tell how that affected Dave. And you knew when something was really important to him. And I liked that. I wasn't crazy that it became, constant talk on the Score at the time. And the Score wasn't crazy about it either when Jimmy DeCastro became in charge and wiped that slate clean. But it was good radio. Like he was passionate about it. And if you're passionate about something and you talk about it like that, no matter what it is, generally, you're going to draw an audience, whether they like you or not. The way you speak, the way you deliver, the words you use, the pauses you take, it's all attractive listening. But over the years, since he was demoted essentially from the afternoons to middays, he really mellowed out. For him, he mellowed out.
Yeah,
and he wasn't as mean and nasty and terrible about things, and he was better. To me, he was at his best these last several years with Lawrence, with Layla, with Marshall. And again, he was the best, I think, host in town, and it's a huge loss.
One more that I have on the topic, and I think Tooch has a question or two on this topic. It was Bernstein fired solely because of that incident that he had on social media, or was this a build-up of things that the station said, enough is enough with this guy? Because there was the social media post about a woman's figure.
Yeah, that was a while ago. But
that was a while ago. But there may have been a couple of things, and I heard some stories that some of the other people at the Score kind of he didn't have everybody over there in his camp in terms of friends.
Okay, so two things. One, it definitely got him fired, because had that not happened, he'd still be working there. Not to say something else might have happened that would have got him fired too, but that was the last straw. So yes, that got him fired. But to your other point, yes, also, when that whole Barstool episode happened, again, bad look for him. That was he makes he makes his own bed a lot of these times, and that was on. See, now everything's on video, like us. We're on video. We're talking, but we're on video. But
I keep telling Tooch that. Be careful.
Yeah, he could. You could see his response to Barstool Eddie's calling him by his last name, and that went viral. Eventually, it got picked up by Barstool and everything. So, and then what happens? Lawrence disappeared. So he had enough of being attached to that. Layla was great enough to stick around, so that was good for Dan. But I think right there, some of his idiosyncrasies had run out with people had lost their patience with them at that point. And so yes, it was a build-up, and that was the last straw. But that's why they had to let him go.
Tooch, you got a follow up on this topic?
Well, I mean, I go way back because Dan Bernstein was kind of. I've followed him since he was the Bears beat reporter on the Score. A lot of Bears beat reporters went on to do make a mark in Chicago media landscape. And with my thoughts on Bernstein was that sometimes he couldn't get out of his own way. He had a little bit of an immature streak for as intelligent as he was. I wonder what's next in store for Dan Bernstein, where he goes from here. Man. That's kind of the biggest question for me after this whole thing went down.
Yeah.
I've reached out. I don't know if he's paying attention to Twitter much anymore, but that's where we've connected in the past. He's been very nice to me. I mean, look, I've been fair with him and criticizing him for the mistakes that he's made, but I can't lie. I enjoyed his work for his entire career. I've been a fan. That's well documented. So he's appreciated that and reached out with thanks for that, but he hasn't responded since, this latest episode. Yeah, I would love to know, and I'd love to be the first to report what he's going to do next. He had his podcast with his son about the Bulls. What was it? Organizations win championships, and it was an enjoyable listen. I feel bad for his son because I feel bad for his family that they're attached with this. It's just unfortunate. But I would hope that he can rebound at some point. It was bad. It was really bad. But was it bad enough to end a career? I don't think so. We should be. It wasn't the first of his mistakes. It was one of many mistakes. But look, I adore Dan McNeil. He came back 3 times.
That's right.
At some point, you would think Dan Bernstein would be able to come back in some form. I don't think it'll be on the Score. I'd be shocked if it was at AM 1000. But in this era of proliferation of media platforms, if he were to appear somewhere, I'd want to listen.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Could it possibly be in another marketplace? Maybe. He's certainly intelligent enough.
It would have to be, I would think, on a national level, which he did. He appeared on. I think he filled in a while ago for Dan Patrick when Dan Patrick took a vacation.
Right.
Wow.
I remember that.
I recall that he was on CBS Sports Radio doing solo national on occasion on a weekend, I think. So he's expanded to a national level on occasion. That would have to be, I would think, his best bet. I don't think he could go into another market with the knowledge that he has of this market and just blend in. That's hard to do. For as long as Layla Rahimi has been here, she's been here for 10 years and she knows her stuff, but people still pick at her. You'll see on Twitter and on the Twitch or YouTube page that she's not from here. Look, people, at some point, somebody was from somewhere else in a lot of media. You have to be very fortunate to be to be Cal Ripken, to stay where you've been for 20 years. She's been in a lot of places in a lot of markets and done great work. So that's one criticism of her I don't think is really valid. She's been here 10 years. But for Dan to do that now at his age, that would be really hard.
That would be a challenge, no doubt. I want to get Jeff Willis in here. I saw him nodding his head, Jeff Agrest, when you mentioned Dan Bernstein with the Barstool incident and Jeff Willis kind of enthusiastically nodded yes and no. And he's a younger guy. He's not from the Chicago area. Jeff is a huge Chicago sports fan who lived in Indiana, was Notre Dame fan, and then is now living out west. So Jeff, I wanted to get your thoughts on that whole Bernstein Barstool stuff, which Barstool, I'm assuming you listen to, fairly regularly, as most people your age do. What were your thoughts when Bernstein had that issue with the gentleman from Barstool?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm like a regular listener of them.
Okay.
I definitely am familiar with their work and whatnot. They're definitely on the, I hope this doesn't sound like a criticism. They're probably on the less professional side, as you would see most media outlets. So they're a little bit different. They probably cater to a lot of the young folks because of that reasoning. But I think that I kind of, when Jeff mentioned the fact that probably rubbed some people the wrong way, that's why I was shaking my head. Yes, I think that's exactly what happened with that situation. I don't think it was so much of, I just think it was the way he handled it and the way he didn't take it very well. They used his last name there. And I think if he would have said something behind closed doors and addressed it that way, it probably would have been fine. But the fact that he, said it in front of the cameras and stuff and everybody was able to see it, like you said, Jeff, I mean, everybody on social media can see it now. So that's why it's going to get blown up the way that it does. And I think, again, that's a criticism that everybody has, and he's going to get dumped on a little bit for it. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, they have breaks. They were going to a break eventually. Take it up with him then. Mm-hmm. But even to take it up with what? I get what he was saying. He felt disrespected. He barely knows this guy, and he didn't like the way he addressed him. But
to me, the name of the show is Bernstein and Harris, or whatever it was at the time. So it was inexcusable that he behaved that way. But be that as it may, Jeff Willis brings up a good point though about Barstool and kind of the unprofessional, or I should say unjournalistic style, because the one thing that Bernstein came from, he's a former journalist, and you could see it, hear it, sense it, on how he presented his topics. And now there's the proliferation of shows like ours and shows like the Barstool Sports and even CHGO. They've got kind of a mix of journalism with the Adam Hogue and then the fandom with Greg Braggs. Jeff Agrest, where do you see this going to? Is it going to take away from traditional sports reporting?
It's one of my biggest concerns.
Okay,
in the blurring of the line between journalism and fandom, where let's be honest, when CHGO first came on, I was concerned. I didn't know if they were competition for us, if they were fanboys talking about their teams. I didn't know what to make of it yet. I've come to watch their shows, and the more I watch, the more I like it, because they are informed and they're professional. I've been to their studios. It is a top-notch operation over there.
Excellent.
But at first, you see people wearing the team's apparel while they're talking about the team. And, if you're covering that team, if I'm covering the Cubs, I'm not wearing Cubs garb. I'm not doing it. You can leave that to the late local news when they go to a bar and they're all celebrating a Cubs win. That's what they do. The beat writer doesn't do that. But now these beat reporters or maybe beat content creators are doing that. You have all these podcasts, and a lot of them are good, dedicated to each team, but they're mostly done by fans, and they get a lot of their stuff from their own observations, and they're perfectly legitimate, and some of them are insightful and unique, but a lot of it they get from the beat reporters at the newspapers, at the radio stations.
Right.
So, it's hard, because I don't want to see the newspaper beat reporter or the radio beat reporter be overtaken by that, because they're getting their stuff in a lot of instances from the beat reporter, and lines are being blurred, and it puts our business at risk because maybe people don't want the objective reporting anymore. Which leads me to another point. You'll get our reporters will get a tweet from somebody or a response, hey, don't you want the Cubs to win? And the response is, I really don't care if the Cubs win. So, and that leads me to this. Forgive me if I'm going off on the rails here, but Cole Wright was interviewing. He's the host of Cubs pre and post on Marquee. And this was last year, the year before. He had on an athletics reporter, I think, Oakland athletics reporter, I think from The Athletic.
Okay.
And he ended the interview with, "May the best team win." Mm-hmm. And that struck me because, and I had to share it with people, so I put it on Twitter. What on earth does that mean? The guy you're interviewing for The Athletic, who covers The Athletics, doesn't care if the best team wins. He has a job to do. You may care because you work for the Cubs essentially at Marquee Sports Network, but there is no "may the best team win." We're the impartial reporters, the impartial observers. I hope people still want that, but the more I see, it seems the less they do.
Yeah, that's what scares me the most, Jeff, is that the audience, the citizens of sports and politics and what have you, they're always on the search for confirmation bias. I want to tune into a radio station that's going to talk good about my favorite sports team or my political party or what have you. I don't want friction in my life. I don't want a reporter to ask a tough question at a press conference because it looks, and that worries me. And I get into debates sometimes with people and I don't want to debate. I don't want to debate. Debate is good. They used to teach that in school. It's good to disagree and exchange viewpoints and so forth, as long as, of course, you do it in a civil manner. But it just seems like that's no longer the case. That worries me the most about almost anything that's going on. Yeah.
You see reaction. I enjoy. This is a new thing for me is watching radio shows. Like I still haven't quite I still haven't figured out that I can pause live television when I go to the bathroom. I still haven't figured that out yet. I haven't figured out watching the radio, but I do. And when I do, I'll watch the comments, and there's a lot of criticism. Well, don't you want the Bears to win? Why are you questioning this?
Exactly.
Because that's what you're supposed to do. That's the role of respectable, rational, impartial media. Like, don't you want to learn something about this? Don't you want you ask questions to learn things. And I just don't want people to just go down. Like you said, we need to be inquisitive. We can't just buy what they're selling all the time. Like at the Sun Times, what we try to do is oftentimes the Bears will put out, they'll give you 3 or 4 different players on a day at the podium, and we'll listen, but you're not required to write about what they say, because that's what the Bears gave you that day. Not that the Bears are giving you anything nefarious. They're making these players available. So what happens? You can have both papers have stories on those 4 players. Make the effort to go beyond that. Don't just buy what they're selling. Go find somebody else in the locker room. We try to avoid that duplication that you might have seen in the past, where both papers have, and it happens plenty enough, where you have both papers or even the Daily Herald with a similar story. Go out there and make an effort to do something unique. And I hope our readers notice that, because that's what we try to do.
Well, I've noticed it, and it's been great. And one of the great things that you do, I think you've done it maybe 3 years now, is you list at the end of the year your top local sportscasters, radiocasters, and so forth.
I've done 5 of those. Can you believe it?
Okay, wow. And you had on a guy who has been a guest on this network a number of times, and a guy who, when I listen to the Bears press conferences, is always asking among the best questions, and that is Herb Howard. You had him on your list. I just want to kind of turn it over to you for me to learn from you. What your thoughts are on Herb, because I think he's a rising star in the Chicago market, and we're going to see some really big things out of him.
Well, I had been introduced to Herb on The Score, listening to him on occasion there. And I didn't know, I wasn't familiar with the Bigs, the company that he works for.
Right.
But I was listening to him, and, you know, there are some people who are not, we'll call them legacy media people. Evan Altman, another one, a Cubs,
Right.
I don't want to just call him a blogger because he does more than that, but I've heard him on The Score, and I've even messaged him like, dude, you're a really good talker. Like, you know, that impresses me. Someone who can go on the radio and talk eloquently and calmly, that's hard. Like people are ripping Layla and Marshall, and I understand that, but that's hard. You know, you talk for 4 hours on the air for millions of people to listen and see how many mistakes you make, or how many stutters or characterizations you make. It's hard. And so when I've heard Evan talk and when I've heard Herb talk, that's the first thing. Is just the delivery. I'm very particular about that. And then to hear the substance that Herb has and the knowledge that he has, I was just so impressed, because again, it wasn't a legacy media platform. It was unique, and that platform brought a diverse perspective that is often missing. You know, it's a black run company, the Bigs, and they have the Bulls, they have the Cubs. They're covering these teams, and Herb to me was just at the forefront of that operation. And so, hearing him speak with authority and hearing him speak well, I said, I gotta put this guy somewhere, because he's made the effort, he's put in the work, and he needs to be recognized.
Very good, excellent stuff. D. Starren says, I still have the Chicago Sun-Times delivered. I used to deliver it myself. Good for you, D.
Bless you, D.
I love it. I love it. Tooch, Jeff, do you have any questions regarding local sports stuff for Jeff? Because I wanted to move on to national, get his thoughts on a few national things. Anything, Tooch?
No, just you know, I go back a long ways with the Sun-Times, like D. Starren delivered as well. In the blizzard of '79, I was riding around to my little bike with a basket on front, delivering the Sun-Times.
Oh, bless you.
11-year-old Tooch.
Well, let me ask a question. Does everybody have CHSN now, or did they have it before?
I did not have it before.
Jeff could get games being out of market. He had the best bet of everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
But yes, Aldo,
you wrote about this in your latest column over at the Chicago Sun-Times about the new deal. So CHSN now has given up their over-the-air broadcast rights in most areas so that they can broadcast via cable on Comcast. Tell us why that is big news.
So it's disappointing, but but in the end, it's good for them. It's good for most people. They launched in last October, and their first distribution announcement was that they were going to be available over the air. Channel 62.2 and 0.3 WJYS, which is which comes out of Hammond, Indiana, but the signal is on the Willis Tower, and you just needed a digital antenna. So we were going back, you know, to the Stone Age of TV here with rabbit ears, and it was a kick to do this, to get that antenna hooked up and run the digital scan. But it was a wonderful gesture until they could get the distribution they wanted elsewhere, and they did. They got it on DirecTV, they got it on Uverse, they got it eventually on Fubo, they got it on RCN cable. But the big behemoth was Comcast, and Comcast was not going to pick that up unless CHSN got rid of the OTA signal, because Comcast kept saying, "Why would we pay for something you're giving away for free?" And they would say, "Well, you're doing it for NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, and the difference there is those stations come with a plethora of other channels. You know, NBC, you're getting Bravo. Fox, you're getting Fox News. ABC, you're getting ESPN. CHSN is a one-off. You're just getting CHSN. So they didn't have the leverage. And they didn't have the leverage of successful teams, because it's no secret all three teams that they have not doing so well. So they tried to get what they could by having the over-the-air signal, but at some point it was just a losing battle, and for the better of themselves, for the better of their business future, they caved and they gave up the local over-the-air signals. It's still available in other markets, Milwaukee, Indianapolis, further outside of Illinois, in Iowa. But to get on Comcast, they had to make the move. And it was unfortunate because it did affect a lot of people who had antennas and only antennas. But you're talking about 500,000 with antennas and 1 million plus with Comcast. And that's the way to go. And so they had to make that decision. And so they're on Comcast, and now they're a regular regional sports network. Ad money is starting to begin to come in. Ratings are higher. And it's a bad look in that they wanted to do this, but in this day and age, this didn't work. And so they had to just bite the bullet and go to Comcast.
I think Samuel captures the feeling of a lot of Chicago sports viewers when he writes CHSN did themselves a disservice by blacking out Xfinity customers, missed the entire Bulls season.
Yeah, well, so that begs the question, was this worth doing? Was it worth going over the air, trying to circumvent Comcast, but not really trying to circumvent Comcast? They wanted it all. You know, it was a really noble effort, and they wanted to be everything. They wanted to be everywhere for everyone. And I appreciated that. Like, putting it over the air for free like that, that's never been done by an RSN. Yeah, WGN did it like that back in the day, but it wasn't an RSN. It was just a local independent channel. This is an RSN giving away its signal. And for the money that sports programming costs, Comcast would not allow that to continue. And they didn't do themselves a favor, but they tried. They tried. And so to take a step forward, they had to take a step back. Well, maybe even 2 steps forward. They had to take a step back with the OTA.
Well, I'm looking forward to finally seeing some Bulls and Blackhawks games in the fall when they come back. Because, like Samuel, I did not see a single Bulls or Blackhawks game because I was not going to run. I got 5 TVs here at my home. We're a big TV family, but I wasn't going to run out and get an antenna for any one of those TVs. I'll tell you that. Jeff, wanted to talk a little national football broadcasting with you. For us fans, for Jeff and Tooch and everyone in the chat, for those of us who are going to tune into National Football League coverage this upcoming fall, is there anything new regarding the coverage or the personalities or the broadcasters that we should be kind of on top of and either looking forward to it or wondering, is this going to work or something like that? Anything come to mind? I know I kind of thrown a curveball at you here.
I don't recall any major personnel changes. Like Tom Brady's coming back, Greg Olson's still on the number 2 team for Fox, Al Michaels is coming back for Amazon, Tirico and Collinsworth, we get more Nance and Romo on CBS. I guess the new thing would be, we have a YouTube game this year for free. Well, it's not free for the NFL or for YouTube for that matter, but it's free to watch. Like, you don't need to go to Netflix or Peacock or Amazon to watch it. The YouTube game will be free. There's 5 international games. We'll have the Black Friday game that the Bears are on, so that's kind of that'll be a tricky week to have them on a Friday. I don't know if they've ever played on a Friday before. I wouldn't think so.
And will there still be a local station picking it up here for those who don't have Amazon? Okay.
That's the rule. I would imagine that would be Fox, since they're the Bears over-the-air partner. Okay. So I would expect it to be there. They're also part of another Monday night doubleheader where they're the ABC game. No, I'm sorry. They're on ABC only when they have the Monday night game. Okay. Not on ESPN. They're an ABC game. But as far as what's new, I don't think anything. I think a lot of the same broadcasters are coming back. The big thing next fall will be, the NBA going to NBC and Amazon.
And John Tesh's
I'm
coming
excited.
back.
I'm excited to see that. But
absolutely.
now, every Bulls game this past season was on CHSN. You know, they had some games. I think they ended up having a couple that were on ESPN also, but they didn't have anything exclusive. Now, next year, they might lose some games to Peacock because they're going to have doubleheaders like twice a week. You know, I don't know if the Bulls will make an NBC national exclusive game, but it's going to be, you're going to have to pay more attention to the calendar for the NBA next year because there's going to be games all over the place.
So, Jeff, when are we going to get to the stage where us middle-class guys, are going to have to pay to watch NFL football week to week to week? Everything's moving to streaming and so forth. That's my biggest concern, because I do think that once it gets to that stage, the NFL is going to start losing its audience. There's the best marketing tool for any Chicago, or not any Chicago, but any sports franchise, is to have stuff on free television. Once you start demanding, the audience is going to become more and more exclusive, particularly with all the economic hardship there is in this country.
I think we're still a ways from that. Again, this contract that the NFL is in right now is through, I think, 2031.
Okay.
So we're into the next decade. Now, that said, they do have an opt-out, I think, after next season, 2027, if I have these. I'm close, if not on there. So that will allow them to reopen negotiations and take more money, because the NBA's $77 billion deal already reduced the value of the NFL's $100 billion deal. I mean, these are just ludicrous numbers.
Wild.
But this is the market in the world we live in. So they're likely going to reopen that and try to get more money. Maybe an 18th game becomes a part of that plan, and you have another exclusive package the NFL can sell to someone. But I think yes, they've gone to the streamers, YouTube, Netflix, Amazon, but most of their games are still over the air. You know, Fox and CBS and NBC, and they want reach. You know, their biggest thing is they want to get their games in the best windows to the most people. So I think we're still a ways away from losing the NFL regular season. People are wondering if the Super Bowl might ever go to a streamer. Like,
wow,
I just can't see.
Pay-per-view.
Never say never, but we're talking about a streaming service handling 125 million people. They could. You know, Netflix had an issue with that fight with the Tyson fight.
Jake Paul, Mike Tyson.
Jake Paul.
Yeah.
So is it possible in the future? Look, technology only seems to get better. So I suppose one day it's possible, but I think we're still a ways away from everything going, all NFL games going behind a paywall. Right. Although, listen, you know, the Sunday ticket is expensive, and people pay for that.
Yeah.
So to think that somebody wouldn't pay for if every NFL game where you had to pay for every NFL game, there's some people out there who I think would do that. But I don't think it'd be very popular.
Absolutely.
Dan McGuire.
That's right. He just sent me a message today that he bought his NFL package, and he says he's prepared to pay for it in the next 10 years. So, and my feeling, Jeff, is that I understand it is incumbent upon all of these professional leagues to figure out ways to optimize their product and to, monetize as much as possible. What I would like to see, and I would consider paying, is if they have a alternate channel for my Chicago Bears, where it's not the broadcast announcers, whoever is assigned that week by Fox or whatever network, but it is coaches talking about the X's and O's and tearing it apart. Specialize it for people like Tooch and Jeff and everybody here in the chat. I bet you 75% of us would pay an extra $10, $15, $20 a week to watch our games be dissected through coaches with X's and O's and stuff, it'd be fun for it to be different than the way it's normally done. I tune into it, sort of like the Manning cast, but without all the celebrity interviews.
Well, I think you're even talking more about the mega cast on ESPN when they trotted that out for the NCAA for the college football final.
Yes,
years ago, they've stopped doing it to this. Like this, but they would have coaches at a round table and they would watch the game, and you'd have the game live on one screen, but then they could go back with their coach's clicker and review past plays and talk about strategy. That's what I watched. Like, you know, I went to Illinois, they're not playing in that game, so I didn't need to watch the actual game broadcast because what these coaches were telling me was fascinating.
It is.
And if you give me the X's and O's of a football game, like the Manning cast, but in this context, it was coaches dissecting and giving their thoughts and the strategy and the rationale behind what they were seeing. Like, that was awesome. I
cool.
watched that faithfully, and I totally agree with you. And we're seeing more alt casts like that, where you know there's stat casts that MLB has done, NBA. When you go to a TNT game. True TV is showing an alt cast of that game, either from a betting perspective or a stat cast perspective. So I think we're going to see more of those because why? It'll get more eyeballs. It'll draw more people to that. You know, it'll bring more people under the tent, is what they say, because they're all watching that game just in different ways.
I got a couple of questions from the chat, but I want to get mine in first. I'm a little bit worried, Jeff, about gambling and television sports. First of all, it could potentially destroy the flow of the game when you bring in some really attractive young woman to say, you know, on this next play, it's plus 500 if they get a first down or whatever it is. And I'm 66 years old, so I get accustomed to my ways, but I like to think that I still am interested in innovation. My problem is that gambling isn't a part of the game. I understand you're trying to make it interactive, but it's not a part of covering the game. Do you have those concerns about what gambling is doing and could potentially do down the line with our sports coverage?
I'm 100% with you. I enjoyed it when Al Michaels or Brent Musburger would sneak in a little subtle, you know, comment, and we all knew what he was saying, but he couldn't say it. Like, it was better then. Now it's just all out there. Like, it's all just out there. It interested me when the UFL began having the lines and the money line in the scorebug.
Yeah,
like they're giving that a shot. And all right, fine. I'm okay with that. I don't want the betting discussion during the broadcast. They have, and these are from ad reads where, you know, the FanDuel, you know, Marquee does it, CHSN does it. These are our 4 prop bets. They get in, they get out. It makes them money, fine. You have people who are probably unqualified giving betting advice, but if it makes them money, go for it. I don't want the play-by-play guy, and I don't want the analyst saying a word about the game.
Yeah,
that's where I draw the line. Like,
maybe
you're
that's
right.
a separate streaming channel that they should introduce.
Well, it is like NBC Sports Chicago began doing betcasts on Bulls games.
Oh wow!
Back 4 years ago. Maybe even pre-pandemic, where David Kaplan would have Kendall Gill and somebody, I remember it was Teddy Greenstein from, because he was part of a betting house, a sports book, I forget which one, but they would talk about, you know, prop bets and that kind of stuff. I'm not opposed to hearing some of that type of programming outside of a game environment. You know, if someone wants to have it as a segment on a show, fine. You can relate it to the game. You can relate money lines, like, you know, the spread for football games. Absolutely. So then, you know, you're breaking down a game. You see Vegas is the line at 3. Okay, I think it's going to be a close game. Here's why. But, you know, getting into your parlays and stuff, it's like talking about your fantasy football team. it's not good programming. It's not good radio.
Right. There's a select audience for that, and so that should be in a select channel or whatever. I hear what you're saying. Tooch, you got a thought on this topic? Because Tooch has been known to give out some gambling advice and talk fantasy football on this network. Any thoughts?
I'm aware.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm like Jeff. I could do without it. I don't need to know. I'd rather have it be separate. And then there's always the question of, we've had this discussion on the show before about, hey, someone got the call and here, it was fixed or rigged or whatever it is. It brings too much doubt into the broadcast, into the league, into the game integrity, all of that. And I mean, now you're getting like fantasy football lines at the bottom, with leading, yardage players, for the game and stuff. It's already a little bit of overkill for me too. But I mean, if it was a separate broadcast, I'd be all right with that. I'm with agreement with both of you.
Yeah, and there's a whole radio network, the BetQL. Well, it was called that now. I think it's MGM. Like, go there. Or VISN. That stuff's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll have to check all that.
That's what I was thinking of. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not a big gambler, so I'm not familiar with those, but I will check them out. Some questions for you, Jeff. Cliff Victoria wants to know about what is the timetable for international teams? Like, let's say the National Football League. Are we going to be watching football games on TV at 8 o'clock in the morning or at 2 a.m. and so forth?
No, not 2 a.m.
Not 2 a.m.
Roger Goodell has said he thinks he can put together a package of international games every week. So you'll have 4 windows of football if you can handle it.
Wow.
The 9:30, the noon, the 3:30, and then the 7. It to me, it's a little much.
Yeah.
I would not want to see that. It takes away the specialness, the uniqueness of an international game. Like, here's my theory. By the Sunday night game, having watched 3 games all day, maybe a 4th, or at least taken in some content of the 4th.
Right.
It's hard for me to go to Monday Night Football because I'm worn out from Sunday. Like,
I hear you.
It's a lot. And then they give you, they give you Tuesday, Wednesday to get your head together, and boom, you're back on Thursday. For Amazon football night. It's a lot. I mean, I love football. I love watching it. I love the strategy. I love the physicality of it. But there is too much of anything. And I hope that they don't get to that point. I'm all for an 18th game of the year. You can't be having 8 and 9 and 9 and 8 records. Like, you have to have an even number. You have to be able to go 500.
Yeah.
But as far as 16 international games, I'm not on board with that. We've got to put a cap on it somewhere.
Yeah, my wife would kill me. I'm just playing college football Saturday.
I was just going to say it's college football because you got now the Big Ten after dark. So you've just moved you're talking 11, 2:30, 6, and then 10 sometimes 9:30, 9. Yeah, they beat the NFL to it with the 4 windows.
Before I move on to other chat questions, Jeff, you've got one for Jeff? You're on mute.
Yeah, if I can unmute myself. Yeah, sorry about that. Just a quick question, Jeff. It might not be an easy answer for you to give. Just with the current market, with everything the way it is, with the media landscape and AI and things of that nature, what kind of advice would you give it to like a younger person who's trying to get into industry, whether it be like writing or covering a team or the journalism aspect, radio, whatever the case may be?
So it's odd in that it's not the best time to be in media. I just saw today the Tribune announced they're offering buyouts. The Sun-Times, we went through this a few months ago, and it sucked. It's not the most stable industry on the planet. So let's start with that. There is not the security that we had in the 90s, in the 2000s. It is slowly. There's been so much. Things have become so compartmentalized in media where you can go. We talked about this before. You go hear what you want somewhere that appeals to your senses. You hear what you want to hear in certain places. So that's been hard. We've been fractionalized in a lot of ways. That said, because there are so many more platforms, there are so many more outlets for people to get into media. You can start a Substack, and if you're really good, you can make a name for yourself. You can become a content creator and make a name for yourself if you're really good at it. Mm-hmm. You don't have to work for a legacy media company anymore to become a star. You can make your own star. You can become your own star. And I think that's huge. You don't have to go send your resume. When I started, I'm 50. I graduated college in 96, and I sent out resumes and cassette tapes and newspaper clips to who? WBBM, WGN, The Score, the Tribune, the Sun-Times, the Daily Herald. If they're doing that still, they're not doing it the way I did it. They're sending videos and they're sending URL links, but they're not sending it to legacy medias also. They're sending it to, Barstool as one. They're sending it to SB Nation, Vox, ESPN.com, all other places. So there are so many more places to go. It helps to know somebody. It helps to be versatile in your abilities as far as writing well, speaking well, performing, because they're content creators now. Those are the people who seem to be really making an imprint in media, are those who can perform. So those are some of the things that I'm seeing in the industry. It's not easy to do, but there are more places to do it now than ever before.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to a friend today who I hadn't seen in a while, and she was telling me about her kids, and she's got a kid that is in the 8th grade, about to go to Buffalo Grove High School. And she says she goes to school. She doesn't have books anymore. Everything is on a tablet. Her daughter doesn't know how to write cursory. And so when she's asked to write something out, it's like a 3rd grade, but yet this child is getting straight A's at school and doing fantastic work. But the things that we grew up learning, I think even Jeff Willis, the youngest one here, I think even he can write cursor.
Yes.
Right. So it's changing really fast, man. It's changing
everything
really
is
fast.
The technology. My one of my favorite stories of all time. My best friend was teaching his daughter how to drive, and so she takes a driver's ed class. And the driver's ed teacher gives her a key, like an ignition key that she stick in there. She's given the key and she says, "What do I do with this?" And she had never inserted a key in an ignition before. It was all by fob, and you hit a button. She said the words, "What do I do with this?" Like, things are different now. Everything is different. And we all have to adapt, and us old guys have to accept that and adapt ourselves.
Speaking of old guys, J2K has a question for you. He says, if we start the season at the Hall of Fame preseason game 1 week earlier for everyone, we can give teams 2 bye weeks, so no Thursday games and then playing on Sundays. What do you think about this? I think that's a great idea. I've been pushing for 2 bye weeks for a long time for player safety purposes.
Right. Well, I think if they're going to go to an 18 game schedule, they'll have to put a second week in to give the players another week off. And I don't know the exact calendar off the top of my head, but that might finally push the Super Bowl to President's Day weekend. So you get the game on Sunday, you're off work Monday. I don't know if that's in theory how it would work.
Sounds great.
That sounds great.
It does sound great. I don't know if that's logistically possible given the calendar, but that's what the goal I think might be ideally. But yeah, the Hall of Fame game. By the way, do we need the Hall of Fame game anymore?
No.
We talk about what year has that game not been affected by weather or B, nobody playing in it.
Yes.
So, we can just do away with it.
No, yeah, I agree with that. All right, I got a couple more here. Let's see.
Yeah.
This comes in from Samo. Does Jeff know what exactly Michael Jordan's special contributor job on NBC's coverage of the NBA for the 2025-2026 season entails? Great question.
No, because he won't get back to me. Not that I even tried contacting him. But I heard Stephen A. Smith say like he's going to be ruthless and honest and open. If he appears 5 times, I'll be surprised. And I don't know if he'll even appear in studio. Like, people are lowering expectations to a point of, well, why are they even doing this? They're doing it because he's Michael Jordan, and he harkens people's memories back to the 90s when the NBA and NBC was the thing to watch on Sundays and in the postseason. Like, the memories I have of watching the Bulls during the 90s, so many of them. So that's why he's brought back. It's just another pulling at our heartstrings, the nostalgia. So I think he'll probably do my guess would be pre-recorded segments, interviews. Maybe he'll appear live via satellite. I doubt if he goes into a studio somewhere. Maybe if he happens to be in town, he will. But I don't expect a whole lot. I mean, how much basketball has he even been watching? He owns a NASCAR team. He's playing golf. He did The Last Dance. He's got a lot of stuff. I don't think he's even watching as many games as the inside the NBA guys are, for sure. So it'll be nice to see, but I don't expect a whole lot.
I hope that whatever he does, I hope he does it well, because it was disappointing to see him fail as a general manager and stuff. Yeah. And he's still Michael. I still love him. And by the way, those NBA on NBC Opens were my second favorite little video packages of all time. My first was the NFL film stuff with John Facenda and the great Sam Spence music and all that stuff. That's number one in terms of my favorites. But when Bob Costas would do those little openings for NBA and NBC, and it was a Bulls finals game, man, I would melt. It was so romantic and so damn awesome. Cliff Victoria is saying that, did you guys mention Antonio Brown is now wanted for attempted murder from that shooting a while back? Jeff Agrest, have you heard about this?
I saw it on Twitter before coming on. I don't know anything about it, but I do know that my youngest son has a fat head of Antonio Brown with the Steelers in his room. That might have to come down.
I think so.
But at the time when we got it, he was a star and everybody loved him. So that was my first thought was, dear Lord, that dude's on my kid's wall.
That's great. All right. Can we close with this, Jeff? I just want to name a few sports personalities, and Jeff and Tooch, jump in here if you want, and get your quick little capsule on what you think of the person and their work. Okay? Sound fair? Stephen A. Smith.
Great respect for all the talking that he does. Like, the man works. That's obvious. He's got multiple shows. I think a lot of it is performative, and I don't have the taste for that. I've tried. Like, First Take, I've taken it in sometimes, and then it's just like, it's exhausting. I don't need this. I'm moving on. I don't need to be yelled at, which I think sometimes tends to happen with him.
Yeah. That's the only reason why, after I watch Greenberg's First Take on ESPN, I always change the channel when Stephen A. Smith comes on, because I don't want to be yelled at. I don't. That there's already too much of that going on. All right.
Now wait, I say that, but I do get a kick out of when Mad Dog goes off on something. So I don't want to be contradictory of myself, but I find that to be funny. I think Stephen A. is taking it seriously and being really angry about stuff about the Cowboys and Knicks. It's just sports, lighten up a little bit.
Indeed. Danny Parkins, former WSCR, who is now at Fox in their morning show.
I'm not crying. I have something in my eye.
I was going to say, wow.
But I was going to say, I miss him too. He was somebody else on the Score whose stock shot up like a rocket. Like, he had the voice, he had the ability, he stirred things up also. Like, he knew how to make good radio. And not that the score can't do that now, but they're missing two guys who were really good at that.
Yeah.
And I hope they can find ways to make that happen again.
Yeah. I agree with you. He's one of my all-time favorite Chicago sportscasters, and I try to watch him on Fox every morning. But I'm so kind of geared into watching the Greenberg show on ESPN that sometimes I forget to turn over.
You know, you think about his rise. I mean, in March last year, he just happened to be in New York for a conference, and he went on television. And you know, in August, they hired him to be the part of a new show. Like, that was, no one saw that coming. He didn't see that coming. I wrote way too many stories about it, but it was an explosion of fame that was unforeseen by everyone involved. People at Fox knew it was possible, and they're very good at finding talent. Like, they're one of the best in the business in finding talent and improving talent and bringing it to the surface. But Danny, I think, came ready for this job on television, and he's run with it. So really, hats off to him. He's super talented. All right, I got one more for you. And this one is going to seem out of the blue, but I'll explain why after you give me your thoughts on Terry Bradshaw. Well, it's time to go.
Thank you.
It's time to go.
Thank you. I'm sorry. It's just time.
Well, look, you know, we've all watched Fox since. I remember when Fox stole the NFC from CBS. Like, I remember the USA Today headline. I can picture it in my head. I can picture watching in college Fox's first games and seeing the initial Fox box that was as bare bones as any score bug you'll ever see. Like, I remember the impact Fox began to make on sports television by taking the NFL. And part of that was because of that pregame show with Howie and Terry and Jimmy Johnson. It's been phenomenal. But you look at that show now, and I'm not the only one who have thought this or to even have said this out loud, but man, it needs an infusion of youth, because you look at Terry and you look at Howie. Yes, you get then Strahan, and then Jimmy Johnson's going to retire, obviously. But it needs an infusion of youth, because it just, call me an ageist, it looks old. It's television. They're there. I'm looking at them, and they've been outstanding for the NFL and for Fox and for the industry, but they're going to have to make some changes soon. And we're starting to see it with Jimmy going away. Here's the thing. They don't need to replace him. Just leave. They don't need 6 guys up there, right?
Yes,
all these NFL shows have 5, 6 guys. We don't need all that. They can just go with Terry and Howie and Strahan, who's great. Bring in Gronkowski for whatever goofy shtick he's going to do on occasion.
Exactly.
But use this as an opportunity to reset your course. You don't need a full set of people. You can you can get more from less.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to have Jeff Willis stand up here and speak to speak for the youth of America. Do you watch the CBS pregame show? What are your thoughts of these shows that have guys who had great NFL careers like Bradshaw, but come on, it's a little hard sometimes. Yeah. What do you think, Jeff?
I'm assuming you're talking about the Fox pregame, but yeah. I tend to agree with pretty much everything Jeff said. I think they do need an infusion of some newer guys. And it's not just so much for the visual aspect of it, but also because just some fresh ideas. Some guys they're seeing people who are closer to their age play. They can give you maybe a different perspective than guys who played 20, 30 years ago, So that's part of it too. I think it's just, again, it's like Jeff said, an infusion of younger talent, different perspectives, different ideas. I agree.
Yeah, and when Terry does the highlights, it can be a difficult listen because it's not flowing as quickly as it used to. And look, it happens to all of us. He's been doing it. They've been on since 94, 95. it's 2025, 30 years of the NFL on Fox. They've been tremendous for them. But he's nearing, maybe another year. And Howie still is with it, but still, CBS had their whole rollout of a new cast of a new crew just this past couple of years, right? Where they brought in Matt Ryan, JJ Watt, Nate Burleson's been fantastic. They're nearing the end of a great run at Fox, and I'm really interested to see what they do.
Let me throw one more name at you before we get you out of here, and that's Kyle Brandt over at NFL Network. I think this guy is a burgeoning superstar in the industry.
He already is.
Somebody has to put him in the position that he deserves to be, which is the main guy on some great show.
I adore him. I think I've talked to him once. So there was a time where the Bears preseason games were done by a 3-person booth. It was Jim Miller and Kyle Brandt was the third person. I think it was Sam Rosen may have been in that booth. I forget, but definitely Brandt was on for at least 1 or 2 games to turn it into like more of it was the last preseason game. So what was happening on the field didn't matter. They turned it into more of a discussion, like a roundtable discussion of the games and the players' performances. And that was where I first got to know him. Then NFL, then he took off, with Good Morning Football. And I just love his talent. I love his personality. I love his knowledge. Peter Schrager got out of there to go to ESPN, and he might have his own show. Kyle deserves that. Like whether it's an NFL Network or somewhere else, he's just a riot, and he's well informed. He deserves a bump doing something else, and maybe if not in addition to Good Morning Football, in place of, since most of the people have left that show from its heyday. But yeah, I totally agree with you. He's a wonderful talent.
Yeah, and he introduces pop culture into sports in a way that's seamless and always makes sense. It was like when Bill Simmons was over at ESPN writing that column. I forgot what it was called.
Oh yeah, Page 2. That
Page 2. Yeah, exactly. Simmons was a podcaster or blogger in Boston, and then ESPN got wind of him, and he did some fine work for ESPN, and he went on. I liken Kyle Brandt to Bill Simmons, but from my taste, much more pleasant because Brandt is a Bears fan, and Bill Simmons talks way too much about Boston.
That's true. That's for sure.
Jeff,
although I'm watching his Celtics.
How is that?
The 9-parter. I started watching because Xfinity gave HBO for free this week, so I started watching it. Phenomenal. I'll just throw out a plug there. Fun, and I'm not even I love the city of Boston. Not a Celtics fan, but respect the history of it, obviously, and it's phenomenal, informative, it's thorough, incredible films, pictures, interviews. I highly recommend it for any basketball fan.
Excellent. Yeah, he always turns out good work, there's no doubt about it. I will definitely check that out. Jeff, you've given us so much of your time. I really appreciate it. I love it when you're on board. I'd love to have you back on. Maybe one of these days we can pick a time where you're on for an entire 2-hour show with us.
I'd love to. This is a blast. Love you guys. Thank you so much for the kind words.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Take care, Jeff.
See
Bye. That is Jeff Agrest. The Chicago Sometimes. What a cool guy, man.
So much more I wanted to talk about, but limited. Yeah.
What did he say? What was the name of that documentary? He said the Celtics documentary. I got to check that out.
Yeah, I want to say it's either on HBO or
I think it's HBO. Yep.
Yeah. Let me look for the exact time.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if he saw Winning Time, the Lakers story.
Oh, that's right.
If he did, it would be one he would like. I know it's a little puffed up for drama, but still a great show, great cast.
It's called Celtic City.
Celtic City, yep.
On HBO, yeah.
HBO, yep. Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to. I mean, being a print media guy myself, talk about sort of whether, how long print media will last. Being that's trending towards digital only content. I know. Stop. I just finished this fantasy football one. I got the reissue of the Kobe. So,
look at
I mean,
that.
look at the back. Look at the back.
You sent me that when the first issue, which I prized that. And the ESPN one is yours, fantasy football. You just finished.
Yeah, just finished. Well, I mean, it's printed. No, we're doing print run 2 now. I'm working on.
Oh, very cool.
A few different covers. You know, they have 6 covers, and I think there'll be a few more added.
Yeah, like they'll put a Bears player for the ones
for different markets and
Midwest.
Stuff.
You know, Packers player for the idiots in Wisconsin. By the way, got to get your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers now being the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That was what I wanted to talk about as well.
Yeah, go for it, brother.
Week 12, week 12, we got a chance to sack the old man again.
Not to sack him, but choke him.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see in his 4th decade, you know, how he fares in the modern NFL, being, you know, his age. You know, then recently, I guess he got married, so maybe he'll stop being a crazy person. I don't know if that's possible. But
what is that all about? He doesn't, you know, introduce his wife, doesn't talk about it, wants to keep it a secret.
He is a weird guy.
It's annoying, man.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to seeing him come to Chicago. I think it's November 23rd or something, right around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's going to be a hot ticket, huh?
The Steelers. You know, I don't expect you know, and quite honestly, if it doesn't work out this season, it might be the end of Mike Tomlin as well, Aldo.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, you know, it's gotten to the point now where all eyes are on Tomlin, and maybe he brought in Aaron Rodgers to save his career. And not that he really was the main guy responsible for that. But anyway, Jeff Willis, what do you think about Rodgers coming back to the NFL?
Well, it's kind of funny because my most recent ex, her whole family's a bunch of Steelers fans. That's where they're from. She was actually born in Wheeling, West Virginia, which is like maybe 20, 30 minutes from Pittsburgh. So they're big fans of Steelers, and they're not super happy about, you know, him being there, obviously. But I'm not sure there's a lot of Steelers fans that are real happy about it. And I talked about this on my show. I can't remember if it was last week or 2 weeks ago. I just think it's odd the way the Steelers have, I shouldn't say address the situation, because they really haven't addressed their quarterback situation very well over the past several years now. And the fact that they went through the entire offseason, they didn't sign a quarterback, they didn't draft a quarterback, and they waited till just now to finally go ahead and make the deal with Rodgers. You know, it's like that must have been their plan from the beginning, because they didn't try anything else. What do I think about it? I think he's well past his prime. We know that. Does he still have anything left in the tank, though, is my question, because we saw with the Jets the last couple of years. I mean, there really wasn't much there. I mean, the Jets are not a very good team, mind you, but I mean, there really wasn't a lot there from Rodgers either. So does he have anything left in the tank? Because the Steelers are still a damn good football team. They got a really good defense. They always have. Their defensive line has been one of the best defensive lines in the league for the past decade plus, and they still have the same core that's been there through all that. So I just think that they're going to be good regardless. They're a playoff team, whether or not Aaron Rodgers is good enough to keep it going for them, though, is the thing. And I don't know if he is or not. We'll have to wait and see.
It's going to be a fascinating season. I am so happy he's going to play here in Chicago. And that game, it's not, for me, it's not just about beating the Steelers, but it is really – and I don't want to sound like a barbarian here, but I really would like us to end Aaron Rodgers' career here in Chicago, just like the Bears, Corey Wooten ended Brett Favre's career. You know, it would be kind of poetic justice for the guy who brags about how much he owns Chicago and stuff. It will be poetic justice for him to come for his final season in the NFL, and we embarrass the shit out of him somehow, some way. You know, that he's yanked from the game, or you know, he throws 3, 4, 5 interceptions, whatever. I want to embarrass the guy, and that's the competitive nature in me. Maybe a little bit, you know, the envious, you know, whatever the word is, nature in me that wants to wish harm on me. But I just hope that something happens where we as Chicago Bears fans can get some redemption for how this guy has just manhandled us for almost 24 years. man.
Well, last time we saw him, he was in Soldier Field saying, "I own you." Right?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, what if like Jervon Dexter had like the game-ending sack fumble on him and like stood over the top of him saying, "We own you now."
Yes.
Wouldn't
That's
that be
what I'm
just
talking
awesome?
about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Something that I could take to my grave with me and say, yeah, at least this happened. These says I feel the same way. We all have our kind of fantasies of how we want to see Aaron Rodgers end his career, hopefully against the Chicago Bears. Mr. Mayhem says the Steelers won't win a Super Bowl with Rodgers. I totally agree. What did you have up there, Tooch, that I accidentally knocked out? Wait,
I didn't have that.
Oh, I thought you did. So status quo attitude still towards Rodgers, says Zach Sullivan. Corey Wooten needs to be a sideline guest. Corey Wooten, is he working for a podcast network now, Corey?
He was with CHGO for a while. I don't know if he still is or not.
That's right. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
I'd like to invite him on. We've had him on in the past several years ago.
I think he was working with NBC Sports too before they folded too, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right, Tooch, you said you have a movie that you saw you want to share with us?
Yeah, I recently saw 3 Days of the Condor, and I had never seen it before.
It's a good movie.
So it had some intrigue with like war in the Middle East and fomenting war, and it was kind of formulaic for the reluctant spy formula. Robert Redford was, not even really supposed to be a CIA agent. He was just there reading books and looking for, possible, plot lines for terror threats for any kind of coded or ideas that might be potentially revolutionary or and then he gets involved in this thing where he's the spy who has to come in from the cold, and with the odd relationship between he and Faye Dunaway, the girl's pay for, he kind of kidnaps her, and then like holds her hostage while he's going through this, people trying to kill him, and then unraveling the mystery and stuff. But it's an odd, offbeat film, typical of Sidney Pollack's catalog. But it was a 73, I think, around there. Maybe.
Yeah, I would say 73, 74.
Okay, somewhere around there.
I when I first saw it, I was a kid when I first saw it, so I definitely found it hard to follow. Yeah. And then when I saw it again, maybe 5 years ago or so, I almost felt the same way. There's a lot of talking. There's not too much action.
Barely any action. Yep.
And I know a lot of the critics love it, but to me, it's okay movie, but not one of my best spy drama movies.
But I was like, I never thought Faye Dunaway was attractive until I saw this movie. I was like, damn, she's pretty hot, man. When she was young,
she was
kind of Kathleen Turner type look, Romancing the Stone. Kathleen Turner.
Have you seen anything else?
Let me see. I have to go back because when I'm watching a movie, I'll look on IMDb, just to find out more about the movie and stuff.
Yeah, I do the same.
Crap, what was that?
I saw while you're looking for something, I'll just say that my wife was watching this documentary called Titan, which was about that ship that was taking people on tours.
Last week's People magazine too, Aldo.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I didn't know that. Titan sub. Yep.
Yeah, well, I gotta tell you, I got sucked into that. Jeff Willis, are you familiar with the story about this submersible submarine that some guy created tours to go down and see the Titanic? And it was a small tube, probably 200-300 square foot. Everybody would get in there. The problem was as he was developing this, there were cracks in the system, and the guy that was running the company, he was such a narcissist, egotist. He wanted to be famous, and he would just, fire people who were bringing up warnings about this stuff. He would not listen to advice and stuff. And finally, like on the, I don't know what it was, the 10th, 12th tour that they did down there, the fucking ship cracked, and everybody down there died, including the owner of the company.
Implosion.
Holy shit.
The story is in June 23rd, People. So
Okay.
Monday, June 23rd.
Because the anniversary is coming up, I guess, a 2-year anniversary or something like that.
Yep.
But yeah, if you're interested in those kind of documentaries, it is so well done. And they've got a lot of actuality footage. Today, because everything is videotaped, it's a lot easier to make documentaries because you can find videotape on just about any fucking thing that happened. And they got some great videotape, and it's very well produced. So I highly recommend it. It's on Netflix.
Yeah,
it's called Titan.
Yeah,
Titan.
That was the name of the sub. Yeah. I can't imagine now. Like in hindsight, of course, getting us in a handmade sub to go down thousands of feet was ever a good idea.
No, exactly.
Hey, I built this sub. Come on, let's go down 2,000 meters down to see the Titanic.
Could not fucking pay me to go down there.
No.
And you want me to pay? No fucking way.
The other movie I saw was Presence, which is the Steven Soderbergh ghost story movie. With,
how is that?
Lucy Liu. I don't think a lot of people like it, although I did like it because it was interesting and it had a twist at the end.
Okay.
But it's it's like you never you're all when you're watching the movie, you're like, this is a Steven Soderbergh movie. When you're watching his style and his camera and his, the way he puts together movies and stuff, and I've been following his career since Sex, Lies, and Videotape, which was a great movie, 1989 or something. I think that was a long time ago.
Same here.
He's made some good movies since then. But it's called Presence. I don't think it was ever at the theater. If it was, it wasn't for very long. And it has that sort of you're an outside observer to this story, watching it outside. You're not like involved and up close with the character or any character. You're kind of just like observing this family go through a haunted house situation. But it is interesting.
Yeah, sounds cool.
Yeah.
Jeff, what about what's going on in the music front with you? By the way, Jeff, I sent you that videotape of what was the song, the Ghost Riders in the Sky?
Ghost Riders in the Sky?
Oh my God, I've been listening to that shit nonstop.
Great song.
My God.
Which version you been listening to?
That old version that I sent you the black and white video of. I think the guy's name's Levy's. I forgot
that was a remake too of the original version. That guy was playing with another group in that video you sent me. Yeah.
Okay.
That's like a famous rendition. That was like there's been so many like top 100 versions of that song, and that was one of them. Yeah.
It is fucking fantastic. I'm hooked on that. It just keeps reverberating in my ears. And then another song that had the same kind of style, Apache. Have you heard Apache?
Oh, yeah.
I haven't heard that one.
Oh, I got to send you that one. Tooch, you familiar with it?
That's the instrumental by
yes.
What's the name of the?
It's been used in westerns by
but I probably know it then. Yeah.
I'm gonna fucking play.
Yeah, it's like Telstar by the Deltones.
What song?
Telstar, which is a famous instrument. Yeah. What's his name? Quentin Tarantino used the Dick Dale song. I forget the name.
The Dick Dale song.
Yeah. Miserlou.
Miserlou's a good one too.
Apache is like that, but I can't remember who the artist is.
Have you guys ever heard the guitar song? It's got Dick Dale and Stevie Ray Vaughan called Pipeline.
Yes.
Heard that guitar song? Great song. It's just a guitar song between those two guys. No singing. It's all guitar part. Fantastic.
That is wild.
Is it the Shadows, Aldo?
The Apache song? Yeah, the Shadows.
Sleepwalk as well.
Yeah, I got it here. Let's listen to a little bit of it before you
down. Yeah,
I love it.
Sleepwalk. Yeah.
I love this.
Oh yeah, I know this song. Yeah.
Yep.
It's definitely Tarantino like.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sleepwalk as well, which is another instrumental with a great melody as well.
You know what I listened to today though that I was actually referred to by Tooch that I've been meaning to get to for a long time and haven't yet was gosh, I can't think of the name of the group now. Tooch, you sent it to me a long time ago, and I listened to it.
The Futurama.
Futurama.
Deluxe. Yeah. Yeah. Did you like the album?
Yeah, I did. I didn't hear every song. I listened to about 5 or 6 of them. What was your favorite that you mentioned to me of those songs?
Oh man, they're all pretty good, man. There's one with a guitar solo at the outro. You know, the song that like goes on forever. It's like just shredding.
Is that Made in Heaven or something like that?
I think it was like Swan Song or
Swan Song. I did hear that one. I'm pretty sure. I liked. There was a handful of songs from that album I liked a lot. You know what they remind me of is they kind of gave me this Jethro Tull, Styx, Yes vibe, and a little bit like even like Duran Duran a little bit, kind of. That's what they reminded me of. It was like a combination.
Yeah,
of those.
Way ahead of its time. It's
really sounded a lot like Yes.
Unknown gem.
The 2 songs that I can think of off the top of my head that their music remind me of is Aqualung by Jethro Tull. There's like a acoustic guitar part in one of their songs. I can't remember which one it was, but it really reminded me of Aqualung's acoustic part. And then the other song I can think of is I just lost it now. I had it. Yes song. Shoot. Why can't I think of it now? Not Owner of a Lonely Heart. What's their other big hit?
Roundabout.
That's it. Roundabout has a very similar sound.
They're touring, guys. doing the album Fragile this year. So
really?
Yeah. Some of the guys, I mean, some of them are dead, and some of them are
right.
Whatever, but some of the members are going to be doing Fragile, the album in its entirety. So they'll be coming through Chicago, the Rosemont, one of the Rosemont theaters.
Oh, cool.
Or Just Plains Theater, something like that. They're playing at a theater in St. Charles, all small venues. They're playing a small venue in Omaha as well. But yeah, do you have Telstar, Aldo, by the Tornadoes?
No. I'm writing all these down. I can't wait to hear them.
That down too.
Telstar by the Tornadoes. It has another familiar, like Apache. It's like has the instrumental, famous instrumental.
You know, I love new music, but nothing turns me on more than when somebody suggests something from yesteryear that I
never heard,
or maybe
like, how did I miss this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So I got 3 good ones here.
What was the song by Telstar?
That's the song is called Telstar, Telstar, by the Tornadoes.
The Tornadoes is the.
Do you have it? Can you play a little bit of it?
Let me find. Let me see. Hold on. Whistle while I search.
I've got this playlist
1960
once in a while. It's got like 800 something songs on it, and I just
hear 1962 instrumental.
I always like instrumentals.
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's like that Miserlou and Apache.
I love it. Here it comes.
As like soundtrack, it's used in some movies.
Yeah,
soundtrack song. Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing. I'll never hear that song again. That one didn't quite do it for me. So let me scratch that one out. What the fuck is this?
That gave me like a 1950s sitcom.
Yeah, it was 1960 was the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I love this. We need to do a segment, especially now that it's the off season, where we talk about music. Now, the Willis Twin Towers podcast on Fridays. They've carved out 20 of the last minutes of their show to talk about music and pop culture, and they've been giving me so many songs to look for. So I want to steal their idea, Tooch, and do that here on this show moving forward.
Cool. That'd be
with
fun.
so much time to fill.
Telstar made it to #1 in the U.S. and the U.K.
Wow! Look at that! Look at that! What 1962?
That's what it says, yeah.
No, okay, so it was really that song that assassinated John Kennedy.
Never recovered.
Hey, Harvey Oswald heard that song and said, "Never fucking again, never again."
Exactly. That's what drove him over the top. All right, guys. Unless you guys have anything else to cover, how about if we get some sleep?
I hear my wife just got home from work. Yeah.
Lucky
She's
man.
working like a half shift tonight. So.
All right, you go finish that shift.
You'll be working a full shift when she's done with you.
That's right.
Right,
Johnny said, "Gee, anything going on you want to plug? Are you doing any gambling, or are you a little bit of a break here?"
I love the NBA Finals right now. It's been fairly successful for me with the prop betting. So I'll be on that game tomorrow, looking for the best props. And then I've had some success. Baseball's been tough. I kind of haven't been as involved in it as well. I'm looking forward to college football. I mean, I'm
That's
already
where you
starting.
make your money.
Got my research ready to go.
Oh, I love Lindy's coverage of college football and the draft.
Gonna find out where all the players are, where they transferred to, who's coaching what and stuff.
Looks like I need to make a trip over to the bookstore, get some magazines.
Yep.
Good stuff. Jeff, you guys taking the day off tomorrow from Willis Twin Towers and then be back a week from tomorrow?
Yeah, Tim's out of town. I think he's going out of town for his son's baseball, so he's not going to be around. We're going to take the day off, and we'll be back next week though, talking about some more Bear stuff, and we'll finish the show with some music, like you said earlier. It'll be a good time as always.
Absolutely, great show.
I'd like to wish all the dads a happy Father's Day.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, what are you doing for Father's Day, Tooch?
Oh, my wife's birthday is also like we're doing like a combo Father's Day. My wife's birthday party on Sunday over here at the house with a bunch of folks.
Love it.
Yeah, potluck.
Nice.
Jeff, do you live near your father? Isn't he out west with you?
He actually lives in the same town as Tim does in Terre Haute.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So they're pretty close to each other. I'm nowhere near any of my family. They're all pretty much all in Indiana.
I see. Well, we'll have to
here.
On the next Willis Twin podcast, so learn more about that. Oh, that's good. Well, everyone out there who is a dad, has a dad, whatever, happy Father's Day. Hopefully you have a better relationship with your father than I did with mine. Motherfucker. Anyway, I will I guess our next show there's a show tomorrow. Joe Mandel and Mike North are eulogizing somebody tomorrow. I think they just did
Brian Wilson.
Beach Boys. Yeah,
Brian Wilson. Yeah. You guys were fans of Brian Wilson?
Oh yeah, musical
fan of Beach Boys. Hell yeah,
Beach Boys. Yeah,
absolutely.
Beach Boys, dope.
There's no Beach Boys without Brian Wilson.
Yeah.
Yep. I saw Beach Boys in concert twice, along with Chicago. They toured together for a few years, so that was a In fact, that was my first concert ever. The Beach Boys in Chicago. I landed seats behind. Yeah, but my seats were behind the stage, so it wasn't a great view of the point, but it was a great view of all the production that was going on behind the stage. So it was definitely a good time. And then I saw them again a few years later. But I'll be watching Somebody Big Just Died tomorrow with Joe and Mike North, and then we re-rack our week next week on Monday with Greg Gabriel talking football. And I know that you guys with Barfly Tailgate Show have been talking about getting back together preseason is when you're going to get the
I think so. And then fantasy football Goon will be coming up soon with getting ready for fantasy football. So Joe and Adam and myself and Steven Zimmerman, getting ready for fantasy football. It's almost here.
Oh yeah, it is.
Well, do you play fantasy football, Jeff?
I do. Tim and I are actually co-commissioners in a league. There's three of us. Tim and I and another guy are all commissioners in the league, and Tim and I have been in it the longest. It's kind of a long story. I got invited into it a while back, but we play in a keeper league. Yeah, so we have to keep 2 players every year.
That's cool.
Previous season, and it actually used to be 3. We had to keep 3 before, but I like it better now that it's only 2. But yeah, it's a good time. We have 10 teams in the league now. We had 8. I talked our league into having an expansion draft one year, so now we have 10. But yeah, it's a good time. When I haven't won in quite some time. I think last year I won was
Nice.
like 2015 or 2016.
Yeah, we should have a barroom league opening for the Willis.
That would be cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got to figure out a way and maybe open it up to. What was the biggest league you guys ever played in? How many teams? 12?
12 is the biggest, yeah. And I didn't like it.
What about you, Tooch?
I think we had 12 last season. Might have been 10. I think 12, yeah.
All right, let me tell you
12
something.
last season.
I played in a league with 24 teams.
Oh my God.
And I was the commissioner, but this is
freezing
how we did it. Yeah, you're freezing up a little bit, but this is how we ran our league with 24 teams. We had conferences, and so every team put in $200. So you had, there was a lot of fucking money. And so the regular season, then you had the playoffs, and then each conference winner played each other. Now there were for that Super Bowl game, you did a redraft because there was the possibility that the team from the other conference had the same players, some of the same players that you had on your team from the other conference.
I see.
So you did a redraft for that week 16 and 17 Super Bowl, and man, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. And then what we did is you paid for waiver pickups. Like if you're going to drop somebody, it's $1 you got to pay. And then every week, the winner won $25 or something like that, $50 something. So every week, that way no team quit because I still got a chance to make some of my money back. Yeah, so I'd love to do that again, run a league like that, big league with big money, and really.
So you basically had 2 drafts, one for each conference, and they had 2 separate leagues in essence that played each other at the end.
Exactly, and then in our website, we had a website. I acted as kind of the reporter, and I would report on what all the teams were doing. So that way, one conference team would be looking at, wow, in this other conference, this guy's 9-0. I'm probably going to meet him in the Super Bowl. And it kept up the shit talking and stuff. It was really a lot of fucking fun. But it was 24 owners who were totally committed to it. So yes. 12 team, $250 buy-in, $3 to make any trade pickup. Money added up. Cliff Victoria had a league similar to that, so that's pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah, we should talk about more fantasy football over the next couple of months and what we can do here at the barroom to have some fun with the whole thing.
It's going to be exciting. There's so many rookies, I think, this year that's going to affect the landscape. I think there'll be a lot more deeper rosters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Past couple years, the rookie classes have been kind of not what we expected them to be until the later guys who end up being really good. Like Ladd McConkey is a good example. Guy went in the second round and ended up being really, really good. But I mean, when was the last time we had a year where there was like a Bijan Robinson or a Saquon Barkley? I mean, Ashton Genty's the closest thing to that this year for fantasy football.
Right. Samuel had a great idea. He did their live drafts at different bars in downtown each season. That's a nice thing to do.
That's cool.
Tooch and I did a draft over at Soldier Field in the skyboxes.
Yeah, that was the best.
Nice.
That was fucking awesome. That was fucking awesome.
We usually just do it at B-dubs. We usually have a draft at B-dubs when we're all together, I should say, which it doesn't happen very often because there's so many of us in different areas now. But we
broadcast the barroom draft.
Yeah. Which is second best to being all together. All together, you're bullshitting, you're cracking jokes at each other. Right. But our last few barroom drafts, we have simulated that feeling through broadcasting our draft, which has been fun.
Right. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Then the chat room will vote on who I think had the best team.
Right.
Right.
It's never me. I always draft terribly, and when I win championships, it's because I did well with the waiver wire pickups.
That's the key. That's always the key. You got to be good in the waiver wire. Have to be.
Yep.
Got to stay on top of it. Indeed.
Yeah.
All right, fellas. I will see
All
you
right.
all very soon. Thank you, everyone in the chat, for joining us, and also thank you to Jeff Agrest from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yeah,
Let me put
great.
up his Twitter information. It'd be nice if you guys followed him on Twitter. I
already do.
trust me, he is a great follow on the X
I
Machine.
have him already following him. Yep.
All right, guys. We'll see you all. Wait a minute. I had a little special thing that I wanted to play here just before I play my open. Do I remember what it was? Oh, check this out. What a drunken fool that guy. That's Foster
Classic.
Covers.
He
Take
might
care,
just have a
everybody.
Maverick in his mouth at the moment, smoke a cigarette or something.
Oh, shit. No, I got to see it one more time. Look at his beard, how much nicotine he's got.
It's like
All the nicotine here.
his mustache.
It's all nicotine.
That is
Oh,
wild.
that's great.
All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.